Here it comes.
All right, before we get on out of here, and yes, I know, ripping the Girl Scouts was a choice. My choice. But actually, if you think about it, not really ripping them, ripping their parents. And ripping parents is always fun.
It's easy, too.
I enjoy ripping parents. Little League parents, Girl Scout parents, Boy Scout parents, whatever. Just parents suck, to be perfectly honest.
Aren't you a dad?
Yeah. So it just...
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, I suck too.
Nice.
Yeah, we all suck. Just some parents have a higher suckage rate than others, and someone that has their kid walk through a restaurant has a high suckage rate. So it's all set.
415 checks in on the text line, says, tell the next one to ask you to buy some cookies. Say, if I buy a box from you, I have to kill a girl from another Girl Scout. Say, what?
You know
why would that be a thing?
You know what I would have liked to have would have said was, like, I don't have any money on me, but I have some Coke. Can I trade you?
Yeah, what do you think?
And see what she said.
Then you come on, you'd be like, dude, all those Girl Scouts, man, they're
the cocaine train.
Losers.
I don't have any Coke though, so I can't do that. What if I had cigars? You want a cigar?
A cigar?
Give you a cigar. I'll trade you a cigar for some Thin Mints. Is what I'll do.
Oh yeah, that's right. We had some news for the 49ers.
Breaking news?
Does the name I'm gonna botch his name here. Yetur Gross-Matos mean anything to you, Tom?
It does.
Defensive lineman.
It does.
From the Carolina Panthers. Just played 4 years with Carolina and is an outside guy. He's been an edge rusher. They list him as an outside linebacker for last year, but another edge guy from the outside. 4.5 sacks was a career high last season. 49ers have added Yetur Gross-Matos. Am I saying that right, Greg Silver? Am I getting that correctly?
Hey, your guess is as good as mine.
There you go. He's the newest member of the 49ers. Yetur is what it says here on his football reference. Yetur Gross-Matos.
You'll know tomorrow.
We'll know tomorrow. Mike Silver will be here. He'll be like,
he'll have the name
I don't know how to say the names. Speaking of,
I think I had beers with him one night with Rodman. I'm not sure. Me and Rodman.
Me and Rodman, we met Gross-Matos in Vegas. I don't know. Went to Binion's.
Brother.
Speaking of dads who suck, Greg Silver's dad will be in tomorrow, filling in for Tom. Mike Silver. He'll be in talking more free agency. And Greg Silver's in next to us right now, getting ready for a little Dubs OT with John Dickinson as soon as the Warrior game ends. What's up, dude?
Yeah, it's a battle of who's going to be more intolerable for you guys. Tom's not going to have to witness 4 hours of Mike Silver. Copes gets, 5 minutes of me here, and then a bunch more in the bullpen during commercial breaks, and then you get 4 hours of Mike, which, let's be honest, that's a full 4, because we're talking all commercial break, full conversation.
I'm going to have a lot of bathroom runs tomorrow during the breaks. Also, he has my phone number now, too. I just wake up to text from him. Yeah, I'm so sick in Indianapolis. What's going on? Like, what's up, man?
Wow,
Let's
the
get lunch.
boy, the text actually makes sound?
Yeah,
That's
he
pretty
voiced
good.
it. No, I'm kidding. He's saying voice memos is what Mike Silver said.
Do you have him set to where he'll go through your Do Not Disturb too?
Wait.
What? How do you do that?
You know, you're the program director. You do that for all of us.
You mean like if he calls me, my phone's on Do Not Disturb?
Yeah, it's just going to go through.
Yeah. No, not on Mike Silver. He's not on my blow through the Do Not Disturb ring.
Okay, yeah, good to know.
Yeah.
Probably a good decision.
You guys are. He is not.
So how was your show?
Thing.
It was good. It was good.
It was good to the very end.
It was good till now, yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
Anyway, how you feeling about free agency? The Niners making the move for Leonard Floyd. Good move?
I like Leonard Floyd because I was telling our guy Jacob Violante out there that Leonard Floyd has looked very good when he's paired with other really good defensive players like Von Miller in a Buffalo or Aaron Donald with the Rams. And that's not an issue for the 49ers because you have Nick Bosa and Hargrave and Fred Warner.
We're calling the Gravedigger on this show.
Oh, sorry, the Gravedigger. And
No,
eventually,
we don't.
eventually you'll get your
different show.
Greenlaw. So I think Floyd isn't going to have to carry such a large load. Pause.
Yeah.
Young Tony
Greenlaw
has made too big of an influence on the station.
What has?
Can
Young
everybody
Tony?
be a digger? Can we just say Greenlaw digger
Yeah.
or Bosa digger? Like everyone should have a digger. Like just a.
I thought. What about Dinger?
Ooh. I love Dinger.
Gravedinger?
Ooh,
The Rockies
great
mascot.
Dinger.
You love him?
Oh yeah, he's awesome. You kidding me? Nobody else likes Dinger. Dave hates Dinger.
I thought you and Dave aligned because you hate kids and you hate Dinger. I thought that's where we were
I don't
going.
hate all kids. Just uniform
Dinger.
ones. Nearly. No, I like Dinger because Dinger is the only mascot I've ever seen behind home plate when there's a foul ball. I'll have to do with this into the camera, but here's what Dinger will do behind home plate. So foul ball, one of their guys, doesn't really matter who gets a foul ball. There's your dinosaur, your Triceratops behind home plate, and with his hooves, he does this.
The foul tip with the hoof.
Yes.
tipping
I mean, come on. It's the Triceratops doing a foul tip behind home plate. I love it. And then he rings guys up occasionally. No, that Dinger cracks me up. I mean, he's stupid, but he cracks me up. Anytime you mimic an umpire,
That's good.
That's pretty funny stuff.
There we go.
I do enjoy that. The foul tip got me one day. I must have been in just a particularly goofy mood when we did the foul tip. Like if I saw Dinger right now, I would tell him, "You had me at the foul tip.
You had me at the tip.
really
You had
did."
me at the tip.
As a concept and in
No,
most
not at the
executions,
tip.
yes,
The
I
foul
hate
tip.
children.
Thank you.
You had me at the tip, Dinger. Yeah.
You had me with the tip. No.
Just for a second, just to see how.
Come on, it is a Triceratops for a reason.
Thank you.
you made your point.
Thank you. I appreciate that. All right, let's move on. What do you got going on tonight, Greg?
I don't know where I'm going with anything anymore.
Neither do we.
Hey, it's nice to have a little bit of daylight when I start the show. That's cool.
Yes.
We're just going to be hearing from the people as we've done all day long. 415-808-5627. Dial me up. Let's talk NFL free agency. What's your favorite move? Do you like what the 49ers are doing? Do you wish that Eric Armstead would stay on the team? What's your favorite non-49ers move? Mine's Gardner Minshew going to Las Vegas. He's going to fit right in. Park out his van, play pickleball on the Vegas courts.
Is he a pickleball guy?
Oh, you didn't hear about this?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, Gardner Minshew would spend his off seasons down in Florida, living in a van in a gym parking lot. He'd go to the gym and he'd play pickleball with older ladies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Attaboy. Attaboy. He wouldn't sleep in that van much.
Yeah. So
There you
They
go.
call it pickleball for a reason.
There you
yeah,
go.
I'm not just making things up.
No,
here.
I hear you.
Yeah.
I hear you.
No, I
808
believe you.
KNBR, get in on some free agency and pickleball.
Pickleball's big.
Let's get the hell out of here.
Let's get out of
shall
here.
we?
Yeah.
I think the show has run its course.
Yeah. Thank you, Greg. Have a good one, man.
Thank you, Tom.
Oh, no. It all went downhill 20 minutes ago. All right, let's get the hell out of here. Let's thank our guests, Jason Cole, Matt Mayoko. Thank you very much to Derek, Tim. Great job tonight. I will be out tomorrow for some medical stuff, and maybe I'll buy some cookies. I'll have some more stories.
You better not, dude. You better not. We're playing the flag now.
There's not a chance in hell. All right, let's go.
I'll see you on Wednesday, bro.
I no longer want them.
I'll see you
See you, bro.
Wednesday. All right, talk to you. Stay tuned. Greg Silver is going to take you right up to Dubs OT right here on the Sports Leader. Take it away, Derek.
Oh my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go!
For you to sound off. For you to speak your mind. This show is for the faithful. Touchdown! Touchdown! Dub Nation.
Bang! Steph Curry again!
And the seam heads that bleed orange and black.
Good man!
This is SportsPhone KNBR. Sponsored by Industrial Metal Supply on the Sports Leader. Check the live stream on YouTube at KNBR 1045.
Let's talk about football. Free agency is getting kicked off today, the first day of legal tampering in the NFL. What's up, everybody? I'm Greg Silver, taking you right up to Dubs OT with our guy, John Dickinson, where I'll be there for that show as well. We got the Warriors playing their second straight game against the San Antonio Spurs. They trail it 60-58 at the half. When that is over, we will have JD join the show, and we'll talk all about it. The Warriors coming off their worst loss of the season, which I feel like there's been about 5 new worst losses of the season at this point, and they all just have different category of loss. Their worst beatdown was what happened in Boston. The most heartbreaking was blowing an 18-point lead in the final 6 minutes to the Denver Nuggets. And then their most WTF loss was losing to a Spurs team without Victor Wembanyama, without Devin Vassell at home. And it's like, is your team really that bad without Steph Curry? I mean, Klay Thompson's the only one that understood the assignment of going out there and playing hard. And it's a good thing he was shooting well, but the Warriors, much better effort, to say the least, with Wemby and Vassell back in the lineup. They do trail it by 2 at the half, but a much better defensive second quarter as they had the advantage 29-23 in that period. So again, I'm Greg Silver. I'm taking you up to the start of Dubs OT, and I want to hear from all of you, because this has been a huge day of news. And no, one day of free agency in the NFL does not tell everything going into the season. There's still the draft. There is always injuries. There are still more signings to be had. I mean, heck, even a guy like Danielle Hunter is still out there. 415-808-KNBR. That's 415-808-5627. Dial the digits and talk to me. I want to know what your thoughts are on free agency as a whole. What has been the most surprising move to you at this point? And let's also talk about the other teams in the NFC that could contend for a Super Bowl, because one thing that is nice and is kind of a privilege if you're here in San Francisco is you actually can care about larger free agency as it extends outside the 49ers, because when you're one of the better teams and you're contending for a Super Bowl and you were just plays away from winning a Super Bowl, and it still feels too soon to talk about it just a month later. But the Niners are making moves, and they're being aggressive, and they are going for it. And I see the phone lines lighten up already, which is a great sign. You can also check in on the Golden State Lumber and Building Materials text line, as 831 is coming in and says, sounds like an ignorant addition to the Niners. I don't know if that is in regards to Leonard Floyd or our boy Yatsur from the Panthers that just became the other signing. And then we have one of our favorites and regulars, CHP Joe, checking in on the text line, wishing everyone they had a nice weekend, saying go Warriors, go Giants. Hey, CHP Joe, hat tip to you, my friend, and thank you for listening, as always. Ton of great text about Tom on the text line as well. I see Dwayne in Stockton. We'll get to you in just a moment to kick off the callers. But first, just a reminder that SportsPhone KNBR is presented by Industrial Metal Supply. Online at industrialmetalsupply.com. Metal made easy. Let's go out to Dwayne in Stockton, who wants to share some thoughts on the 49ers. Dwayne, how are you?
Doing good, man. How about yourself?
Doing great. It's been a really interesting and fun day of news, which is a lot to keep up with, but it gives us a lot to discuss on the show. And so I'm really thrilled to be here. What's on your mind tonight?
Yeah, man, me too, man. I want to kick the show off right and, talk about the home team. The 49ers need to use – it's a deep draft. It's a real thick draft, man. There's going to be first rounders in the second round as far as I can see. So I feel like the Niners should use their first 3 picks on defense. Don't go for Danielle Hunter. Stop trying to sign names for guys that have done things in the past or think about their potential, because that didn't really work out, man. Chase Young, I'm not sure what grade I'd give him. The Gravedigger, man, that's a hell of a nickname, but I'm not sure how many graves he does. You know what I mean? And then also I feel like that's what hurt him in the Super Bowl was a lack of depth on defense. So I want you to know what you got to think about that, man. Have a great show.
Yeah, thank you so much for the call, Dwayne. It was a really great way to kick off the show. And I think there's some real truth to what Dwayne is saying in the sense of good organizations will find a way to stay afloat or better, even if they're going through a rebuild period or they're recovering from making a big gamble. And I think the Los Angeles Rams, while they may be a division rival, is a good example of just that, where they went all in terms of trades, spending money, trying to get Matthew Stafford, trading away Jared Goff. Both QBs ended up being good. Stafford was the right move to go and win them a Super Bowl. And they went all in, and fortunately for them, they cashed in on it. Then you saw what happened the following year. They didn't have any draft picks. They didn't have a lot to work with. Aaron Donald was injured. Heck, everybody was injured, and they didn't make the playoffs. And there was a lot of talk of, are the Rams even going to be good? But that's a well-run organization with a very good head coach. And they hit on a couple of draft picks like Kyron Williams and Puka Nacua, 2 fifth-rounders, that made them a playoff team this year. And they almost won a playoff game on the road in Detroit in that really amped-up environment. So when I go back to Dwayne's call, what I'm thinking is, well, the 49ers have draft picks now. They got 11 of them, to be exact. They have a first-round pick for the first time in 3 years at least. We can just wipe the Trey Lance slate clean, and it's amazing that they not only recovered from that, but that they were contending and on the brink of hoisting a Lombardi. So, Dwayne, if you're still listening, I agree with you, man. The 49ers got to capitalize on young talent, and they did that with Brock Purdy, and it allowed them to keep this loaded roster and Avengers-like cast together. But you got to pay Brock Purdy next free agency. And other teams are making moves too. The Lions, I think, got better today. The Packers, not usually an aggressive team in free agency, they're making moves. That's 2 teams that had you on the ropes in the postseason. And then there's the Chiefs. Well, guess what? Chris Jones staying right there. So 808 KNBR, come talk to me. That's 415-808-5627. We're going to take a short break here, but I want to hear more thoughts on free agency. And what do you think about the Niners? But also, is there any team that you fear more after some of the moves that went down today? We're going to talk all about it. It's SportsPhone, and you're listening to KNBR 104.5 and 680, the sports leader.
San Francisco, shout out to you for supporting KNBR, San Francisco's sports leader.
Trending now on KNBR.com.
The 49ers are signing defensive end Leonard Floyd to a 2-year, $20 million deal, according to NFL Network's Ian Rappaport. More on that story trending now on KNBR.com and the KNBR app.
The nighttime is the right time for SportsPhone KNBR. Let's f***ing go on the sports leader. Streaming live on YouTube at KNBR 1045.
Goff, hands off, awkward handoff to Gibbs.
Ball!
He fumbled the ball! He got hit, he fumbled the ball, the 49ers have the ball!
Bang!
Eric Armstead recovers the fumble! Not a clean handoff by Goff. As he ran into Gibbs, then Gibbs got hit, he fumbled the ball, and Eric Armstead took it. Mahomes back, gonna step up. And Mahomes gets hit from behind by Eric Armstead.
Oh, the title
What a play. See what they do with the clock now. Neither coach will call a timeout. Now one. Now they're going to let it roll. 16, 15, and now a timeout is called.
What a sack by the tidal wave.
Some of my favorite calls from Greg Papa and Tim Ryan through what was a wonderful 2023 season that ended in such a difficult fashion. Greg Silver here with you on SportsPhone KNBR. Another hour to hour and a half, depending on the pace of this Warriors-Spurs game that's going on right now. And then we got our guy behind the glass, Jacob Violante, along with myself and John Dickinson, all contributing to Dubs OT. Can the Warriors avoid 2 losses in a row to the San Antonio Spurs? Well, not going to be any easier this time around with Victor Wembanyama and Devin Vassell back in the lineup. I would say the Warriors are on the road, but they've been more disappointing at home for the most part. They currently trail it by 10 in the early stages of the third quarter. Let's get back to football talk, because that's what we're here for. We're going to catch up with Adam Rank a little bit later in the show. Adam was awesome. Talked about his team, the Chicago Bears, but also knows ball all around in the NFL. We talked about running backs and how much they have shifted around. We talked about the lack of movement on receivers. Curious to see if T. Higgins ends up getting traded after he requested a trade from the Cincinnati Bengals. Jacob said he thought it could be a Debo type of situation and just to leverage the Bengals a little bit. I don't hate that take at all. And I think the Bengals should want to keep T. Higgins because the offense of Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins, I would worry about Higgins much more than a Joe Mixon, if I'm being honest. But let's get back to our team. 650 on the Golden State Lumber and Building Materials text line. Checking in saying Leonard Floyd has Brandon Staley written all over it. Weren't they together on the Rams Super Bowl year? Not the Super Bowl year, but the one. Staley was on the Chargers by that time, I believe. But the year before, when the Rams had the number 1 defense, they were together. They were also together in Chicago when Staley was part of the Chicago staff under Vic Fangio, and got some stats in there as well. Sacks over the past 4 years. Leonard Floyd, 39. Brian Burns, 38.5. Floyd, 10.5 last year. And if I'm not mistaken, he was the one that sacked Aaron Rodgers on that 4th play of the season when he ruptured his Achilles. Man. Wow. So, a lot to talk about. And I think that there are still players out there that the 49ers could and should want to go get. Because when you have to pay Brock Purdy, this is the last year, at least for the short term, where you can be this aggressive on free agency, knowing that a big chunk of your money is going to take up some space by paying your franchise quarterback. And Khalil Mack could still be out there. Joey Bosa could still be out there. There's also been some reports out there by guys like Mike Silver. Good journalist. I read his stuff in the San Francisco Chronicle. Pretty good. Filling in for Tom Tolbert tomorrow, by the way. That's going to be one heck of a 4 hours for Adam Copeland. Yeah, thoughts and prayers to our program director. At least when I'm in the chair, Copes can just get out of here. Like he's like, program director, 6 o'clock, I'm done. It's the night crew's problem. John Dickinson's problem. So you got DJ Jones, who could come back to the 49ers, and the Broncos probably going to cut him. They still need a third corner, a nickel corner. And I think Diamador Lenore was awesome this year. But, the Ambry Thomas thing, a little shaky in the playoffs. Isaiah Oliver, it didn't quite work. Charvarius Ward, happy to have that guy. And possibly a safety, too, because with no disrespect to a guy like Logan Ryan and all he's accomplished in his career, I think when the 49ers brought him in late in the season, they were kind of hoping to not have to play a Logan Ryan and rely on him. And Tayshaun Gibson is another awesome player, but he's older. So maybe that's where they head with the draft, and maybe that's where they target in free agency. But we got time, and we got open phone lines, and I want to hear it from you. 808 KNBR, 808-5627. Thoughts on the 49ers? Leonard Floyd. They got, I'm going to keep messing up his name. Yatur is what it said on the Football Reference page from the Panthers. And I also want to get into some of the other NFC teams that could be getting in the way of the 49ers. Because this is actually a really good text from, I'm trying to find it again. This is from 510. It was talking about how you have to get some breaks in order to contend for a championship. And we mentioned the Rams winning the Super Bowl and them taking advantage of that. Jaquiski Tartt dropping the interception. A painful and vivid memory. And yeah, 510, you're absolutely right about that. You need a lot of things to go your way. And it went both ways kind of for the 49ers. They had a couple of really bad breaks in the Super Bowl. But then you also had plays like the ladybug catch from Brandon Aiyuk. And you maybe don't complete that comeback against the Detroit Lions without that. Or Anders Carlson missing a kick in the divisional round. Or even earlier in the game, not to play all devil's advocate here for the Packers, but they went for it on a 4th and short. And the Chains had a little gap there to give the ball back to the 49ers. Looking at that play in real time, I'm thinking, I don't know about that spot. And fortunately for the 49ers, it all worked out. And credit to how they finished the game. But you need to execute and have breaks go your way. And that's what makes it so hard to be so close to a Super Bowl and then get back there 4 years later and then just have the same thing happen. And you think about the Kansas City Chiefs and how, well, last year, that was the year to beat them. They had a makeshift receiving core. They got rid of Tyreek Hill. Patrick Mahomes was playing with an injured ankle in the playoffs. Oh, wait, no, this year was also the year to beat them. They looked disjointed in the regular season. They looked distracted. Their defense became the story of the team when it was their offense that really started this dynasty. And you saw a similar shift with the 49ers, where the defensive line was like the old reliable of this team under Kyle Shanahan. It was your rock. And you took care of Nick Bosa, and you signed him, and you traded for Chase Young. And still, the run defense wasn't quite there. The Lions carved them up in the first half. And yeah, they got a damn good offensive line. But I'm thinking, are the 49ers ever going to stop them? Aaron Jones, who is now going to be released by the Packers, was giving the Niners a hard time in the playoffs too. So here's where I'll defend Eric Armstead. And Greg Papa, my namesake, talked about this a little bit earlier today in defending Armstead because he was playing hurt. And I'm with Greg Papa on that. Eric Armstead is a very good player who was playing through a lot of pain this year. And a big part of why that run defense was never as consistent as it really should have been in the minds of fans and local supporters. But I also understand the decision to move on from him. And I do like the signing of Leonard Floyd. Set the edge. Another guy. You got Bosa, Hargrave, and now you got a Leonard Floyd who I think is not only a good player, but like I said beginning of the show, has proven to be very good when you surround him with other great defensive pieces. And that line, I think, has a chance to still be a problem for teams. The 49ers, and part of what makes this window so fragile, is that the brand of physical football they play, a guy like a Deebo Samuel or Brandon Aiyuk or even Christian McCaffrey throwing angry blocks, George Kittle, of course, on offense. Well, that takes a toll, and those miles add up real quick. But I also don't think the right approach, if you're a Kyle Shanahan or a John Lynch, is to be like, well, we should really try to preserve this roster. No. Football's a brutal game, and you play a brutal style, and you beat up on teams, and you got to go and seize that moment. So Leonard Floyd, welcome to San Francisco. Let's go out to the phone lines because we got Scarecrow from Paso Robles wanting to talk some Niners. Scarecrow, what's going on this evening?
Nothing. Just a typical Monday evening. My question to you is, Brock Purdy is a really good quarterback, but he does benefit a great deal by being able to concentrate on being a quarterback because those people around him know Shanahan's system well enough that they can go to those particular spots. My question to you is, you may be able to pair one, but how many do you pair before that offense becomes a mere shadow of itself?
When you say pair one, what exactly are you meaning?
You might be able to pair one of those skilled players. But how many of those guys can you pair off before not only are you dealing with less efficiency in the offense, but less efficiency from the quarterback?
Well, that's a good question.
Has he learned enough in 2 years that he can overcome that? I don't know.
Yeah, and that's a great question, and I really appreciate the call, Scarecrow. I think when you talk about aging in this offense, there have been arguments that because Brock Purdy was a 4-year starter in college, that he is closer to what his ceiling is than, say, an Anthony Richardson or a guy that is still a very raw talent in the league. I don't necessarily buy that for a few reasons, but one, football is such a complex strategic game. And I would say in all major professional sports, probably the one where head coach counts the most. So Brock Purdy wasn't running this complex of an offense in a Kyle Shanahan system. Brandon Aiyuk has grown a lot since that rookie year when people thought he maybe was a little bit immature, talented yet inconsistent. I mean, heck, in 2020, or was that 21, when Debo was like an MVP type of candidate, and Aiyuk was fine. And now you look at it this year, and Debo had a solid year, but Aiyuk was second-team All-Pro. And it was talked about on our airwaves a little bit earlier. Aiyuk has probably benefit more from the pairing of Brock Purdy and him than anybody else. And to Scarecrow's point, it's not going to last forever, right? Like, when Brock Purdy isn't able to be blocked as effectively, as is the case with any quarterback, by the way, it's hard. Yeah, when Chris Jones is running right at you unblocked in a Super Bowl, guess how many quarterbacks are going to make a play? Maybe the one that's on Chris Jones' team? Like, maybe? And that's an if. That's a big if. So, I do think Brock Purdy can evolve in this offense with only 2 years. Because a Kyle Shanahan offense, and no disrespect to the college football program of Iowa State, 4 years in that system isn't quite 4 years in a Shanahan system. And I think what all fans are going to wrap their heads around, and probably have to an extent at this point, is if Shanahan wanted Purdy to be the guy, well, then there's something there. And I know opinions on Shanahan and his management of players or down the stretch of games has suffered a little bit because of what happened in the Super Bowl. But we're still talking about a top 5 coach in the league. And offensively, top 3? Andy Reid, McVay won a Super Bowl. Cope says 2. Oh, he says peace. Adam Copeland, everyone, says Shanahan's the second best coach of all time. And also peace. But yeah, one of the great offensive minds. And I do think Purdy can continue to evolve. And his game isn't going to be growing into the physical talents that Josh Allen has. But if we're talking continuing to process quickly and the mental side of it, I mean, can we give the kid some love for how quickly he picked up on it? By the way, newlywed Brock Purdy. Congratulations to he and Jenna Purdy, I'm assuming now. Brock Purdy. Husband Brock Purdy is going to hit different. He was a baby-faced assassin And he still will be, but you're like, whoa, that's a married man. That's going to be a father soon.
I want a different ring on his finger, Greg, okay? I don't care about his wedding ring. I want an SB ring. I want the Super Bowl ring on his finger.
You got to take care of one at a time. I do think he was doing everything he could to get that ring that Jacob's alluding to. It's painful to think about, but hey, I like it, and I like the messiness in all of this. And here's a little devil's advocate thing against the Packers, because everyone's freaking out about getting a safety, Xavier McKinney, and Josh Jacobs. I think the safety signing's good because the Packers don't go out and get young defensive studs, typically. They did it with Adrian Amos and the two Smiths in Brian Gutekunst's first year. But that's never really been their game. It's like, oh, let's just draft a guy and hope he turns out to be good. To their credit, it actually works more often than not. It's like an infuriating strategy that's successful enough to be a relevant team. But Aaron Jones, and we talk about this with Adam Rank, Aaron Jones, that's a really good player and a really dynamic player. And yeah, he might not be the pass protection kind of back, and maybe Josh Jacobs gives you something different in terms of going up the middle. I don't know, man. Like, it's not been a lot of times that running backs will go to a second team, and the same can apply to Saquon Barkley and be super effective Hall of Fame career type of thing. Now, Christian McCaffrey has stayed healthy since going from the Panthers to the Niners, and that has worked out. So it's not impossible, but I'm not calling it a massive upgrade. And we don't know what Jordan Love's going to be. That's another quarterback that has shown some nice flashes and has improved a lot. Is he going to plateau? So let's keep talking about it, but I do owe you all a short break. And a reminder that Dubs OT with John Dickinson will be coming up after the Warriors and Spurs game. Warriors made a little bit of a run. Now up 6, middle of the third quarter. It's SportsPhone, and you're listening to KNBR 104.5 and 680, the sports leader.
want your reaction, so give us a ring or blow up the text line at 415-808-KNBR. This is SportsPhone KNBR, streaming live at twitch.tv/The Sports Leader.
I think, there's fully an intention. I think they want Aiyuk back. I mean, there's not one thing about this 49er offense when you study it closely is they don't have, Debo's an inside receiver, Kittle's an inside receiver. When they have somebody on the outside that, football has become a game like basketball where you need the outside receivers to spread the floor, to create the spacing within the defense. And Aiyuk gives them that, and I think they need to get him back, and his ability to make plays down the field is critical to the offense as they try to develop and get faster on offense. So I think they're fully intending, because of the cap increasing, to now have a legitimate shot to get a deal done.
That voice you heard is Mike Lombardi, who was on with Murph and Marcus this morning. SportsPhone KNBR rolls on. I'm Greg Silver. Approaching the 7 o'clock hour, we're going to hear from Adam Rank coming up in just a bit. And that right there was a conversation about the importance and need of maybe keeping a Brandon Aiyuk, because he's an outside receiver and he isn't George Kittle. He's not a Debo Samuel. I think for Brandon Aiyuk purposes, they can wait on the Brandon Aiyuk factor for now. They don't have to decide if they're going to pay him, what they're going to pay him. We got a long offseason, even though it feels like everything's moving like crazy. But during the break, we had a phone line light up and had a nice little chat off the air with Isaiah in Fremont, but I made sure he did not tell me what he wanted to talk about, because we got to save the good stuff for right now for everybody. Isaiah, what's going on this evening?
Hey, Greg, not much, man. Thanks for having me on the show tonight.
Absolutely. What do you want to talk about in regards to, I'm guessing, the Niners?
Yeah, so I got 2 points on the Niners. I want to talk about what they did today, and also what I really want them to do in the next couple of days as we enter the next phase of free agency. In terms of what they did, I really like the Leonard Floyd move, because they've really needed a premier edge rusher opposite of Bosa. They've tried Drake Jackson, they've tried, I think, Cleveland Farrell, they tried so many guys after D Ford was cut, and it just never worked out. So to have that guy opposite of Bosa that is a premier edge rusher, I think will really help, because Bosa was taking so many double teams and triple teams, and a lot of the guys other than Chase Young, they didn't really do it a lot opposite of Bosa. So I think Leonard Floyd will definitely help the defense, and also to maximize Bosa. And then in terms of what I want the Niners to do moving forward is, they signed a lot of the edge rushers with Gross Matos as well as and Leonard Floyd. I think what the Niners need to do now is to focus on the offensive line, as well as focus on getting a backup quarterback. And I think the backup quarterback I really want to see them get is, and Greg, I think this is a very interesting one. I think you will like it a lot, and that is Bailey Zappi from New England. He's shown that he is a starting caliber quarterback, and New England, I think, went out and got Jacoby Brissett, and they got, I think, one more guy in free agency today. So it looks like that they're going to be parting ways, and Bailey Zappi has shown he can start and when needed, and he can play at a pretty high level. And I think if Brock Purdy, cross your fingers if he gets hurt, I think Zappi can step in and you won't miss a beat with him.
All right. I like it, Isaiah. I appreciate you. Really, really, really good thoughts coming in on the late 6 o'clock hour here. Now it's finally starting to get a little dark, but hey, daylight savings, I'll take it. I'm always pro lose the hour of sleep if we get real days. Really good call from Isaiah there. And I kind of like the Bailey Zappi thing, because I say the first part kind of jokingly. Bailey Zappi and Mac Jones, you look at New England this year, you put one in, you put the other in, it's the same quarterback. It's the same quarterback. Remember how much everyone really liked Mac Jones coming out of the draft, to the point where the Trey Lance thing sort of threw everybody for a loop? I was pretty confident it was going to be Mac Jones for the 49ers the second they made that trade. And you would think that when they make that trade, they know who they're getting to give up 3 1s and a 3. And then there were all those reports that maybe Kyle Shanahan talked himself into Trey Lance. But if everyone was high on Mac Jones and Kyle Shanahan wants is the wrong word, doesn't need necessarily a Patrick Mahomes or a Josh Allen. He needs someone with the processing ability of Brock Purdy who can run an offense and be smart and get the ball into tight spaces to your playmakers. Well, Bailey Zappi, not the worst backup option, fitting in an offense that runs well. I don't think it's anything special. I'm not saying it makes you excited. But here's the thing with Sam Darnold. Talented, can move, don't know exactly his processing abilities. If the Niners had to trot him out there in a playoff game, I would be dead scared of mistakes. But you take a Bailey Zappi, and you hope you don't have to start him for more than 2 games in place of Brock Purdy. But could he function running an offense and win a game against an inferior team? Probably, with a defense like that. I think probably. I think don't turn it over is item number 1 on the checklist. Keep Kyle Shanahan's blood pressure down a little bit. So good thought process there by Isaiah, and going over some other needs. Isaiah's off the line now, but if you want to get on the line, that's 808 KNBR. Still got time to squeeze in a couple of calls here. That is 808-5627. We also got the Golden State Lumber and Building Materials text line. We're also streaming on YouTube at KNBR 1045. See some of our regulars in the chat already. What's up to Rockin' New Era 84? Hello to you, Ernie Chavez. Some of our regulars who will be joining us for Dubs OT, which is coming on in the next 45-ish minutes. We're going to connect with John Dickinson. We're going to talk all about the Warriors and the Spurs. But, yeah, 49ers still have some needs that they have to address. Had a really good talk with Adam Rank about all of it as far as larger NFL conversations go, too. And let's see, just checking a few of the chats here. Always some good back and forth banter going on. Yeah, I don't know. I think that the overreaction free agent signing of the day to me is probably going to be Saquon Barkley to the Eagles. I think Saquon Barkley still has gas left in the tank, so it's not about that. But the Eagles just had Fletcher Cox retire. They had Jason Kelce retire. They have a lot of really good linemen that are old, basically, and I think that they're probably going to plateau or, if anything, get worse.
Speaking of that, I wonder if the Jason Kelce retirement is going to make the tush push a little less effective. I wonder if, I'm sure that multiple centers can do it or whatever, but you looked around the league, he was the best at it, you know? And I get that Jalen Hurts is the running quarterback, but I think this was all Kelce getting that like lower drive.
Didn't hurt.
So, interesting.
Maybe the best center to ever play the position, honestly. Like, it is cool. As much as people are tired of the Kelce brothers, I don't really mind any of the Jason stuff. I think Travis, after the Super Bowl, cutting that sound, I was like, I have had enough of this. Taylor Swift did nothing to bother me. She showed up for her boyfriend and watched football. Travis Kelce, oh, that was a lot to swallow.
Okay, again, Greg, that is a great phrase. But again, Jason Kelce, after the retirement, when he went to the Kansas City Chiefs AFC Champ game, shirtless in the stands, just drinking beers with everybody.
Oh, yeah.
I love that. Jason Kelce, lovable. Travis Kelce, not so much.
We had a 5-to-1 segment, which we're not doing tonight because of the short show we have. But we did a 5-to-1, and Jason Kelce at the game in Buffalo was on that mark. And I'm saying to Tim, I think is the one I was staring at, or maybe it was Raph at that point. I'm like, the visual of a 300-pound bearded man, shirtless, lifting up kids so they can get a look at Taylor Swift is so weird. You describe it, but because it's Jason Kelce, you just kind of see it and you're like, oh yeah, Jason Kelce's just hammered, watching his brother play in a playoff game, just having a great time. Did not care if he was on camera at all. It was just like he was just there to do his thing, enjoy retirement. And then telling his wife too, like, oh, I'm not asking you, I'm telling you. Mark on the phone lines in Oakland has been a patient trooper. Mark, you're on SportsPhone. How are you this evening?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. And I know I'm a special guest of the night.
You are.
No,
Anyone in the 510.
I thought my agent worked something out. I wish. I would like to have an agent. I'm calling about the 49ers. I like the discussion. I like the move. I like going with the defensive line. I think more defense, the better. The less that we have to rely on Kyle Shanahan getting ahead and then blowing it with bad decisions. And that leads to my next point. I think I would like to see, and I don't think he'll do it, but Kyle Shanahan to hire a coach the same way the coach, it's slipping my mind his name, but coach for the Rams. He hired a coach just for clock management and game time decisions. That is Kyle's Achilles heel, and I think the other part of his Achilles heel is because he's so good at some things, I think he thinks he's good at everything or something, so I don't think he'd ever have the humility to do that, even though the other guy won a Super Bowl and he did it. So that's what I'd like to see happen. And then the last thing, Brock Purdy, I actually think I've upgraded him from the regular season as a decent quarterback to solid, which is all we need to win a Super Bowl. I don't think he's a great quarterback. He had a bowl. He could have been a great quarterback.
He's not great, but solid. Hold on, Mark. Solid is decent to me. Solid is like Derek Carr for the majority of his career. Do you think Brock Purdy is just that?
Oh, no, okay, so I'll define solid. Solid to me is solid, good. There's two above. There's solid, then there's really good, that's almost great, and then there's great. I would say Derek Carr was a little below solid. He was kind of inconsistent. So I think we're set there, but he could have been great, and a great quarterback would have made that throw at the end, even with the pass rusher in his face in overtime. That was his moment. He didn't get there, but he's solid, so we're good there. So I like everything, except Kyle Shanahan needs to have some humility and get help with in-game decisions and clock, because he's blowing it over and over, and he doesn't seem to be learning. I don't know if it's ego, but I'd really like to see him do what the coach for the Rams did. If the Rams guy can do it, you can do it. You haven't won a Super Bowl. You're not that smart.
All right, well, I appreciate the call, Mark. Thank you so much. I hope you continue calling into SportsPhone. I'm actually with him on the clock management thing. Kyle Shanahan can be so rigid about sticking to his game script that when something goes awry, he will almost go into a little bit of a freak out mode. And that doesn't mean he's a bad coach when that happens, but he's not, I would not say adaptability is his strength for all the great attributes he has as a head coach. So I do kind of like that idea to get someone to help with situational, kind of tough situations. And, Brandon Staley is going to take on some roles as an assistant coach, and I know it's going to set a lot of people off to be like, oh, that guy couldn't manage a clock, or he made terrible decisions to go for it too. And some of them were pretty bad. But I also think that Brandon Staley is someone that was a great coordinator and had a really rough last year as a head coach and a bad playoff game to exit the year before. Take everything else away. You can name a lot of coaches worse than Brandon Staley. And if you're not the head man, I think he's a good football mind. I do. Here's the deal. We're going to break now because the Warriors have about 9 minutes left in the game. We're going to catch up with Adam Rank, and then we're going to see where we're at right ahead of Dubs OT. So huge thank you to the callers we've had thus far. And, man, this hour flew by. This was great. But I'll be back soon. Not going too far away. SportsPhone. You're listening to KNBR 104.5 and 680, the sports leader.
What's trending now?
Trending now.
On KNBR.com.
J.D. Davis has been released by the San Francisco Giants. More on that story trending now on KNBR.com and the KNBR app.
on the sports leader. SportsPhone KNBR keeps rolling. Live from the KNBR Casino Matrix Studio. Casino Matrix Progressive Jackpots are here. Where are you? Just drop in. Please play responsibly. 1-800-GAMBLER.
Welcome back to SportsPhone KNBR. It's been a crazy day here at the office, or every office around the country, including that of Adam Rank. He is an NFL guy, a fantasy guy, and he also is the proud owner and host of the Sick podcast with Adam Rank. Adam, thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Oh, my gosh. It's been a crazy day. Like, it's interesting to think that right now we have had, Kirk Cousins sign, Russell Wilson sign a deal, and yet Blake Snell, nothing.
Yeah.
We had Jordan Montgomery, nothing. Like, what is J.D. Martinez? Nothing, which, by the way, has anybody ever bothered to look that J.D. Martinez, his numbers last year, very similar to Shohei Ohtani. The only thing is, wouldn't have cost $700 million. But that's for another day. The NFL's taken the news cycle now, so it's been great. Sorry, Silver. I know I'm launching into it quickly, but you know what? I was told to bring the heat, and that's exactly what I do.
Hey, bringing the heat is what we not only strive for, but require here on our shows at KNBR. And, that's okay. We can just defer the J.D. Martinez and all the baseball news to, 80% of its worth for 14 years from now or something like that. How does that sound? We'll stick to the NFL.
Yeah, exactly. By the way, you cannot convince me. This is my weird conspiracy theory, is that the MLB arranged that just so he would go to the Dodgers. Like, I don't think he wanted to go there, but they're like, dude, look, we'll give you $700 million, and you'll end up owning the team in 10 years. He's like, fine, because nobody really wants to play for the Dodgers. Freeman, Josh Freeman. Wait, not Josh Freeman. What is Freeman's? Freddie Freeman. Freddie Freeman has never made any, he's never made it a secret. I would have gone back to Atlanta, but my agent screwed up, and I fired him. Nobody wants to play for the Dodgers, but congratulations to them. They want to know. And by the way, if they end up winning the Arizona or the spring training, the Cactus League, please do not let them make up sweatshirts that say World Champions. I know they tried to do that in 2020, trying to let their little bubble title count as a World Series, which I guess is what happens when you see your rivals win 3 in 5 years. But whatever. Don't let them do that. But anyway, again, I digress. I'm so sorry. Let's talk football.
Well, hey, you're speaking to the right audience right now, and I feel like them making T-shirts for that would be the equivalent of the Lakers hanging a banner for the in-season tournament. We could just rag on LA teams over and over and over again for as long as we go. And maybe we'll do that. Maybe we'll do that for football.
Hold on. In defense of the Lakers, and listen, I know this is where I lose you. This is like that scene in Black Sheep where Chris Farley goes a little too far, and you're gonna be like, wait, hold the phone. I think that was it. That the NBA made them hoist that thing because they want to make that tournament seem like a real deal. Because to the Lakers' credit, they do not hang division or even conference championship banners. It's all about world championship. They're not the Clippers. The Clippers would have probably had a parade for it, but I think that came from Adam Silver himself. You're putting up a banner, guys. There's no way around that.
All right, well, I can respect the perspective and the theory. I'll probably choose to disagree so I can just be more bitter about it.
100%. Please do.
Well, listen, on the NFL, first day of legal tampering, all sorts of free agency acquisitions going on around the league. I guess I'll start with a very broad one, but what's been the biggest surprise to you?
Wow. You know what? Saquon Barkley going to the Philadelphia Eagles shocked me a little bit just because I thought that there were some other spots that would have made a little bit more sense for him. I was, what we do on the NFL Network on Sunday, I was sitting here doing a little worksheet, sending in some homework hey, what are some fits you would see? And I was looking at a guy like Saquon Barkley, and I'm like, I would love to see him in Houston, who could really use an upgraded running back. They did very well with Devin Singletary, but if they had somebody like Saquon Barkley, be an ascending, join an ascending team instead of a team that's maybe toed, maybe already hit their limit. But it was interesting to me to hear that he was going to Philadelphia, number one, because, Jalen Hurts scores 15 touchdowns on his own. They, I don't know, but we've seen a lot of players retire from that team. Kelce's obviously retired. Cox is retired. Like some other guys, like it's just, I don't know that the Eagles are still they're still going to be in the mix. They're still a very good team, but that one was the most shocking one. It was a high-profile one, too. So I had anticipated him going someplace else. But going to Philadelphia does make some sense. They need playmakers, so why not?
What do you make of all the running back shuffling around in general? I know late in last offseason, it was a point of contention for a lot of running backs to talk about how they put their bodies on the line, their careers don't last as long, they don't get paid what they think they deserve, except for maybe a select few. And now you got a whole sense of shuffling today. We talked about Saquon Barkley, of course. Then DeAndre Swift went from said Eagles to your Chicago Bears. Aaron Jones is on his way out of Green Bay. Josh Jacobs going to fill that slot. Austin Eckler is going to the Washington Commanders. Tiki Barber and Saquon Barkley are having online beef. I mean, what is going through your head with the running back position?
Well, there's a lot of factors at work here. Number one, the salary cap increase has allowed teams a little bit more flexibility to spend some money at the running back position. But at the same time, you got to look at the running back class coming in right now. Like when you look at the running backs coming into this season's NFL draft from 2024, there's a lot of good players who will probably end up falling to the 5th or 6th round, maybe the 4th round, to where, hey, if you want to wait for a guy, that's fine. But there was not like a Bijan Robinson, DeAndre Swift, or not DeAndre Swift, but the kid who is God, why can't I even think of the kid's name in Detroit, who they went with last year. But at any rate, Gibbs. So like those guys kind of set the market back a little bit last year, because at the same, like when you can get a player like that who's going to be on a 5th year, a rookie contract for 5 years, you would rather go that route. But there aren't guys this season who would fill that role, which is why we see Saquon Barkley going to the Eagles, why we see the Packers take a risk. And to me, it's kind of a big risk that they were going to go with Josh Jacobs. I mean, number one, as you mentioned, I'm a Chicago Bears fan. So it's interesting to look at this because Aaron Jones, I know that he's battled some injuries over the years, but he is the heart and soul of that team, like really an underrated player. And Josh Jacobs kind of, I don't know, like he kind of stumbled for a couple of years. And then when it was contract time, he really cashed in. And I don't know how many times that we've seen players leave teams like this, especially running backs, go out there and really hit like as a top flight, especially for the money that they're commanding, like making that much money and really fulfilling and really getting the value of what you're paying. But I think because the running back values for the draft board have been depressed, a lot of these guys were able to catch. I guess sometimes it's when you are a free agent. It doesn't matter, a lot of the, how good you are. But if you're in a time when there's not going to be a lot of options on the draft board, you're going to go out there and cash in. And some of these guys really did today.
Yeah, they certainly did. We're talking to Adam Rank, by the way, on the UMA guest line here. Kind enough to spend some time with us on what has been a whirlwind of a day in NFL land. Let's talk about Justin Fields, because you've been a busy man today on NFL Network, and you said that Justin Fields should stay right there in Chicago. Now, our producer, Derek Papa, who does a wonderful job, is like, hey, hit Rank with this question. What if a team like Minnesota and a division rival offered Chicago a second rounder for Justin Fields? Do you take it?
I mean, I think that would be damning if you're willing to trade him within the division. I'm trying to remember. I think it's happened before, but I would have to go back and really look at this of when somebody changed divisions outside of Brett Favre, circumventing, going from Green Bay to Minnesota, but having a stop with the New York Jets. It would be really interesting, and it really would have to be a good offer for that to happen. But it is interesting with Justin Fields. Now, I have said for quite some time, and I'm going to take a second and kind of lay this out. Like, I've kind of felt like, the quarterback position is always a risk. And to me, like, Caleb Williams has been one of those guys that they call generational. I'm like, okay, but like, has Trevor Lawrence really been that great? Like, I know Joe Burrow did get his team to the Super Bowl, but you look over the last number of years, you're like, I don't know. Like, it's not the guarantee it once was or ever was, So for me, I would be willing to go and, with the number one pick being such a hot commodity, trading down, building up the team, giving Justin Fields one more chance. And if it didn't work out with Justin Fields, well, I guarantee you there will be a quarterback available in the draft next year that you can go after, but really just trying to go after it that way. And then last week I was doing my podcast, and there was a guy on in Bears Twitter named Mikey Bear Down Cuz who had a report that said, look, the Bears aren't moving off of Justin Fields. So I went on and I started doing my thing. I was, doing my show and reacting to it. And I'm getting texts from sources and people in Chicago who are like, no. They really want to draft Caleb Williams. And I kind of went that way. But it appears now that there aren't many spots left for Justin Fields. Like, obviously, Atlanta was a possibility. They've got Kirk Cousins. Pittsburgh was a possibility. They got Russell Wilson. The Raiders signed Gardner Minshew. So really your only choices are the Giants. You could also, as you said, Minnesota. So there's a chance that Justin Fields stays, and it's not a guarantee that they don't draft Caleb Williams. Or a couple of years ago, this as well as anybody. The 49ers were trying to unload Jimmy Garoppolo before drafting Trey Lance, and they couldn't get it done. And it led to an awkward situation where Jimmy Garoppolo was on a separate field. I know I'm telling you guys stories that you already know. It's like the Bears could be in a very similar circumstance with that, or they could trade down. So right now, I'm just kind of – I'm done. I'm done speculating. Like, Ryan Poles knows what he's doing, or he's got a plan. I'm going to let that play out, and I'm going to stop listening to people because nobody knows anything. Unless Ryan Poles tells me exactly, I'm not listening to anybody. I've learned my lesson.
That's a fair lesson to learn, I think, when you consider NFL news and the strong reactions. And, yeah, I don't think a lot of people expected Jimmy Garoppolo to come back, and that ends up being their quarterback. I think he was actually playing really well in that last season, but then that got overshadowed by Brock Purdy coming in out of nowhere and being as great as he was. That's a good pivot to our local team, which is the San Francisco 49ers. They are likely going to release Eric Armstead, although nothing official yet. And then they just brought in Leonard Floyd. The defensive line has sort of been the defining factor of this team up until last year when it sort of underperformed relative to the rest of it. And it was the offense and Christian McCaffrey that really ascended and was sort of a defining factor. It's no secret that the 49ers window is not going to be open forever. I mean, next free agency is already going to be a problem with having to pay Brock Purdy a lot more money. And you look at a guy like Kirk Cousins, and how does he reset the market like he once did when he signed in Minnesota? So I guess what I'm going to ask on that one is, for the 49ers, what do you think about the Leonard Floyd signing? Like, are you mostly positive? Are you like, whatever? Are you thinking they got to do a lot more than just that? Where's your temperature at on the 49ers?
No, I actually really like that move. I think Leonard Floyd has shown that when he's on a capable defensive line, he performs pretty well. I mean, we saw him obviously with the LA Rams when he was playing alongside Aaron Donald. Like, he goes out there and he plays really well. And so for me, like, he's going to a situation where he's got a lot of talent around him and he can go out there and do his thing. There are going to be some people who are like, you are a good complementary piece, but you're not the main event star. Like, you're Tully Blanchard. You're not necessarily Ric Flair. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. Kids, go back and look. That was an apt reference in the early 90s. But in any event, I think he's a good signing. I think that the 49ers, we saw last year, like, taking the chance on Chase Young. I thought it still worked out. I thought before he got hurt in the Super Bowl, he was playing really well in that game. So I think that he can come in there and do his thing, get to the quarterback, allow the other guys to go out there and do their thing. I thought the 49ers did very well. And I don't think that, like, they're one of those teams you look at and you're like, yeah, no notes. Like, you're fine. Like, you're a good organization. And this really, shows how well this roster has been built. When you think about this, and go back to that moment I was talking about with Jimmy Garoppolo and Trey Lance, like, botching in some respects the Jimmy Garoppolo thing, blowing the pick on Trey Lance, and yet you're in the Super Bowl. Like, this shows you how well this organization is run. And so I know that the free agency is looming next season, but I really do believe that they're going to go out there and fill their holes, the few holes that they have. They've shown it time and time again. They're not afraid to take risks on guys, trading for Chase Young, trading for Christian McCaffrey, doing what they have to do to be successful. The 49ers are once again going to be at the top of the NFC, and I wouldn't be worried too much about it. I'm curious to see what they do moving forward, but I don't think they have a lot that they're going to have to settle.
You know, one of the things we've discussed with some of our callers tonight is that it's a privilege to be able to care about free agency as a whole, because if you're a contending team like the 49ers, then it does matter what other teams are doing, especially in your division or in your conference. I've been looking at some of the other teams. In fact, I just found out that Leonard Williams re-signed a 3-year deal with the Seattle Seahawks. The Detroit Lions just got Carlton Davis from the Buccaneers in a trade. We talked about the Packers and them being aggressive for once in a free agency. What do you make of the other NFC teams, and do you think the 49ers have their toughest path yet to get back to the Super Bowl?
Well, I think that the team that you beat in the NFC Championship game will probably end up being the competition that you're going to be having to fight through. I think Detroit has really done a nice job of roster building, of being able to add pieces and go out there and just have a solid all-around football team. We see what the Chiefs can do with Patrick Mahomes, and he kind of overrides some of the deficiencies of them. But a lot of the teams in the NFC have strong rosters top to bottom. Even Seattle, you know, being as successful as they have been with Geno Smith just kind of lends itself to how well they've built the team. The Packers have done well, but at the same time, it's still the Packers. Like, what if the Packers, like, you guys going to do this again where you roll, like, the Packers' path to the playoffs depends on the 49ers not being there. Otherwise, it's just not happening. Like, it's just not. And I felt bad having to tell people that this last year. I'm like, you're not going to do it. And they kind of, and I'm curious too, how it works. And this is where people will be like, well, he is a Bears fan, so of course you'll say this. But like, you kind of like, Jordan Love got away with so much stuff last year where you're just like, you know what? And I know that I'm like, if they were playing a better team, he wouldn't be able to do this. And of course, in the NFC or the divisional round, he goes out there, tries to throw his back foot floater pick. I'm like, dude, that's been building this whole year. Like, we've been building to this point for you to do that. But I think that the 49ers, again, still in the mix with competition from the Lions, competition from the Eagles, but I think the Eagles will take a little bit of a step back. So I think that they've got the edge over them. Dallas, like, be serious. Seattle will be okay. The Rams will be a little bit better. I think the Rams are the one too, like, because there's always one team that you're kind of on the lookout for. Because I thought the Rams sort of overachieved this last season. I thought like getting to the playoffs for them was big, and even going into that game against the Lions, I thought they were going to have a real chance. Or they did. They played pretty well against them, but I thought the Rams were going to win that game and end up being the team that got to the NFC Championship game. But unfortunately for them, it didn't. Great for you, but it didn't work out for them. So I think there will be some teams, but I don't know who's approaching. I'm curious, again, as somebody who's a Bears fan, who's like, that team's building a roster too, because I think Chicago is in the same mind frame as the Lions, as the 49ers, of like, we're building a team that's going to be able to win despite not having perhaps the best quarterback. I mean, Brock Purdy's good, Jared Goff is good, and we could make an argument that Justin Fields is good or Caleb Williams is going to be good, but similar type of build for a team that's like trying to build to the offensive and defensive line and attack it that way. But I still think that right now, as we look at it, 49ers are the team to beat in the NFC.
Adam Rank, kind enough to join us through the UMA guest line here on a Sports Phone evening, taking you right up to the end of the Warriors and the Spurs for a little Dubs OT with John Dickinson. A final few minutes here, and I guess, you're right in that nobody should be overreacting on day one of free agency. There's still more signings to come. Injuries always happen. There's a whole preseason. There's the draft. But the NFL really just will move the needle. And a lot of moves like today kind of have done that. For all I know, by the time that we're done with the night, this could either be proven right or wrong. But do you have a prediction of a big free agent that has not signed yet and where they will sign? I know Danielle Hunter is a name that has popped up for a lot of us here in the Bay Area. Nobody's ended up paying him yet. Kirk Cousins sort of reset the market. Of course, there is the Justin Fields situation. I'm just wondering if there's any player you're particularly on the lookout and where you think they might end up.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what happens with Hunter because he was a guy that I thought that some team was going to move on very quickly. You know, looking at some of the teams that could use some help at edge, like edge is always a premium position. Now, there are a couple of teams, there's a couple of players in the draft who will be attractive, especially for teams in the top 10. I'm thinking of the Bears specifically, because if the Bears wanted to go after Hunter, they could spend they got cap room, they got an opportunity to go out there, and then they could use that number 9 pick for a wide receiver or perhaps offensive line. You got a team like the 49ers, you know, who'll be looking around as well, though, with Floyd going now. I would anticipate them being out of the mix. So I'm looking to see if the price for Hunter drops a little bit. And I think that, and again, this will come off as my Bears bias, but I think that this is the move that Ryan Poles has been waiting for. So he's just kind of looking at it. And I think he's hoping that the price tag is going to drop a little bit, because Christian Wilkins got a huge number from the Raiders in this one. And even Justin Jones left today and got a huge number as well. So you see these teams.
Hey, everybody, it's Greg Silver again. Big thank you to Adam Rank for coming on with us. But it turns out the Warriors wrapped it up against the Spurs quickly, and they got the win, and John Dickinson's ready to go for Dubs OT. So without further ado, let's get right to it, and Dubs OT starts now.
Dub Nation. Time for the real and inside story on Warriors basketball.
Curry sidestep, Curry drive, Curry flip, Curry good!
This is Dubs OT with John Dickinson on KNBR 104.5 and 6.8. Streaming live at twitch.tv/thesportsleader.
Skip pass, Champagny. Drop it in, Wembanyama. Trace Jackson Davis is there again.
Wow. It's a big-time stop, big-time rebound. Stopping Wembanyama at the basket.
One more bucket. One more bucket or one more stop. Trace Jackson Davis. Oh! He put the entire country of France in the basket. Take that 8-foot wingspan with you. Woo!
That is his welcome to the league moment. Dunked on by another rookie. That is insane. And he went for the steal, and that's what set him up. And Trace Jackson Davis just finished him.
They felt that in Lyon, in Versailles, in Paris, in Burgundy. Oh, man!
Warrior victory in San Antonio. Dubs get the job done 112-102. We welcome you in. It is Dubs OT with JD here on KNBR, the sports leader. Wow. I mean, that was just fantastic. And Trace Jackson Davis, maybe the dunk of the year, up there, at least in the conversation, considering who it was up against in Victor Wembanyama. But maybe the play of the year for the Warriors over the course of this season. Certainly the play, and there have been a few of them lately, all the blocks against Giannis, but that's got to be the play of the year. Blocks against Jaylen Brown earlier in the year in December, and a big Warriors win at Chase Center. But 13 points, 10 boards, 5 assists for Trace Jackson Davis. And the Warriors end up in 26 minutes for him, coming back, rallying from 11 points down and 10 down at the half, flip the game in the second half, and dominate San Antonio in the second half to the tune of 54-42. So much better defense for the Warriors in the second half. And, still over these last 3 games since the Milwaukee win, it's a disappointing 3-game stretch with the Warriors getting just one of the 3, but they do bounce back after the horrific home loss to San Antonio on Saturday night, and they get the win to improve to 34-30. So 808 KNBR is the number to react to this one. 415-808-KNBR, 415-808-5627. That is the phone number to give us a call or shoot us a text here, as we'll keep this thing going at least until 9 o'clock tonight here as Golden State does bounce back. We got Greg Silver in our San Francisco studios as well. Greg doing an awesome job bridging the gap between 6 p.m. when Tolbert and Copes get off the air and when Dubs OT starts. We'll hear from Greg coming up a little bit later on in the program. But we want to hear from you as the YouTube chat people start to get in on YouTube. We are streaming live on YouTube and Twitch as well as Twitter. the live stream on the KNBR page of Twitter as well. You can join the program in those different ways here as, again, the Warriors win this game by 10, and they get the job done 112-102. Some thoughts on this one. Warriors, pressure on Steph, or pressure on others with Steph out, and the Warriors had a much better balance in terms of the scoring load. We talked about the defense in the second half, but I like what Steve Kerr did before the game even started. He went to the starting group that I think should be the starting group for the duration of Stephen Curry's absence. And we talked about it on Just Dubs on Saturday with Chris Paul taking the starting point guard duties with Stephen Curry out. You need to add shooting to that mix. And Kerr stuck with Brandon Podziemski in the starting lineup, actually went big with TJD and Draymond and Kuminga at the three. Didn't work. Flat out didn't work. Warriors didn't have enough offense. I know Steve said he wanted to get off to a better defensive start. But I think you have to play your best and most cohesive five, and that also means Andrew Wiggins has to be playing. And for as great as Kuminga has been, it has been the combination of Kuminga and Wiggins and Draymond Green that's helped make the Warriors winners here, that front line over the last 7 weeks or so. And so getting those three back together on the front line, I think, gives the Warriors their best chance. You have to have some shooting on the floor if Chris Paul is going to be the starting point guard. So you might as well go back to, even though he's enjoyed the time off the bench and the new rhythm and all that, you might as well go back to somebody, yes, not maybe the player that he has been throughout the course of his career, but you might as well go back to one of the greatest shooters in NBA history in Klay Thompson in the starting lineup. So right off the bat, I liked what Steve Kerr did before the game to get Wiggins back in there, bump Kuminga back to the four where he's his most effective. Draymond, not the best Draymond game tonight. 28 minutes, fouled out, 5 points, 6 boards. He just didn't play well in this game. Now, you still need him to play his 25 to 30, but Trace Jackson Davis, I know Draymond had joked about TJD kind of saving him going back to, the Milwaukee game, but TJD basically saved Draymond tonight. But again, I like the move to get that starting lineup in there. Lets everybody else fall into place better, I think, in the Warriors rotation. Spurs started out hot from three again, and the three-point shooting has been something that the Spurs have been much improved at over the last couple of weeks since the All-Star break. The Warriors were getting outworked again. Flat out hustled, out rebounded. The Spurs were making wide open threes. Really just a horrendous defensive quarter in the first quarter. Saw the Warriors give up 37, down 37-29, and it was the fifth straight quarter over these last two games where San Antonio put at least 30 on the Dubs. 32-30, 34-30 the other night, and then 37. This is actually the worst quarter of them all in the first quarter tonight, but the Spurs were getting good looks, also outworking and out-hustling the Warriors. Chris Paul basically saved the Warriors in the first quarter, 4 of 4, 8 points in quarter number one. Got to give Jonathan Kuminga a lot of credit tonight. A lot of credit tonight for Jonathan Kuminga, who hit his first 15-foot jumper, and I was like, oh my gosh, what like that's what you learned after taking a couple of jumpers to begin the game against San Antonio. But it was smooth, that first one, and then Kuminga went one of his next 7, and it was on the interior where Wembanyama was bothering him a little bit, and he ended up, I think, taking another little pull-up jumper that missed. But a lot of his misses were on the interior because they were challenged by the length specifically of Wembanyama and others on the Spurs. So you give Kuminga credit, and here's where I do give Kuminga credit. He was 2 for 8, and he took a breather, basically. He stopped shooting for a minute. Like, just stop shooting. And after he, maybe was forcing it a little bit, just looked to move the ball when he got back in middle of quarter number 2. Actually, at the beginning of quarter number 2. He was out there with CP3, Wiggins, and Podziemski. And CP3, Wiggins, and Podziemski, in that little stretch, that group flipped the game along with Kuminga and Trace Jackson Davis. Those 5 out there together. Kuminga didn't take a single shot until he took a 3 for the entire stretch that he was out there with, and he was looking to pass. His energy, I thought, improved. And then after the 2 of 8 start, Kuminga ended up 7 for 10 for the rest of the game. So big-time credit, not to harp on the 2 for 8, but a big-time credit to Kuminga for making the adjustment, catching his breath in game, and then almost getting a little bit of a restart and ending up 7 of 10 with a lot of that going to the basket. He did hit another 3, that 3 that I just mentioned. He did hit another little pull-up jumper. So Kuminga, doing it in a multitude of different ways. But again, big credit to him because he didn't let a poor start turn into a brutal night on a night where the Warriors really needed him. And again, the 7 of 10 helped flip the game along with what CP3 and Wiggins and Podziemski did in the first half specifically. That group got the Warriors back in the game and got the Warriors a lead there late in quarter number 2 before San Antonio ultimately flipped it, and San Antonio ended up with the 60-58 lead at halftime. Spurs came out, scored the first 8 of the third, and you're thinking, again, more bad defense. No urgency at the beginning of that third quarter, but the Warriors came alive right when they were on the brink of having things get out of hand for a second consecutive game. 13-4 run, and that third quarter was really sparked by Kuminga. And he got the Warriors going, got them back close, and then the subs came in and kept it rolling. It wound up being a 32-6 run. The Warriors went from down 10 to up 16. And, others, Trace Jackson-Davis, Peyton Podziemski, Draymond and CP3. Wiggins was a part of that as well. And that helped, again, spark what was a 32-18 third quarter. And really the tip of the Warriors becoming much better defensively on the night. And that gave them a comfort zone to be up 14 going to the fourth. And it was a 24-22 fourth quarter. Warriors are up 90-78, and some big buckets from Kuminga. The Spurs did cut it down to 8. Chris Paul had a big jumper. Draymond was in foul trouble throughout the course of the entire game, ends up fouling out. Kuminga comes back in. Kuminga held his own against Wembanyama defensively in a couple of key junctures tonight as well. I want to give him a nod for that. And the Warriors made Wembanyama work in this one. They made him inefficient in the game. He missed some free throws, but he was 10 of 25 to get his 27 points. And, he had 14 boards, and he had a couple of blocks and a couple of assists, but he really was inefficient. And all told, San Antonio, 41.9% shooting top to bottom for them in this game. And that was after a pretty hot start. The Warriors end up just a tick under 50 and 12 of 27 from three-point range. And you add it all up, and it winds up without Steph Curry, any win that the Warriors get without Steph Curry, and we were talking about Saturday having the potential for them to get a couple without Steph. I think we've seen these last two just how difficult it's going to be for the Warriors to get wins, but this is a huge win, as they all are at this point, if the Warriors still want to have their sights set on the potential to get out of the 10 seed. I still think the Chicago game and the San Antonio home game Saturday are going to prove to in essence, when we look back, probably eliminate the Warriors from being any higher than 8th. But I think 8 is still very much attainable for the Warriors at this point as they get to 34 and 30. They're still a game back of the Lakers, but even in the loss column. And again, the two teams that the Warriors are facing here with 18 games to go, those two, the two teams that are directly in front of the Warriors, the Lakers, who the Warriors play twice in Los Angeles, and the Mavs, who the Warriors play 3 times, twice in Dallas and once at Chase Center on April 2nd. The Warriors control their own destiny, basically, as far as really having an opportunity to move up. You win 4 of those 5 games against the Mavs and the Lakers, you've got a really good chance to get to 8th. And as you look at it now with Dallas suddenly having won 3 consecutive games, you know, Dallas is basically tied with Sacramento. Now, we've talked about all the tiebreakers, and Phoenix has slipped back into 6th. The Kings are 7th, but basically in a tie for 7th with the Mavs, tied 7 and 8. But the Warriors are not going to have tiebreakers over Phoenix or Sacramento, so I think it's going to make it more difficult for Golden State, even though they're the same distance away from Dallas at 2.5 as they are from Sacramento. Both those teams 9 over 500. So all in all, surviving without Stephen Curry, I think for the Warriors is huge. And, you know, they didn't do it, and it was ugly the other night. They were able to get the job done in this game tonight and get the win. And so I think you have to take it. You have to take a lot of the positives. The Kuminga bounce back after the slow start. Chris Paul's ability to make shots tonight. They needed his scoring. Klay Thompson, while he was 8 for 21, he did knock down 40% from 3 at 4 of 10. His 21. The Warriors had enough offense tonight, and their defensive competitiveness was so much better in the second half after they got down 10. It was almost as if collectively they said, this is not happening again. And Trace Jackson-Davis gets a night. Tonight was a night. The young players were, for the most part, awful Saturday. Trace Jackson-Davis, Brandon Pajemski, Jonathan Kuminga, all big-time positive contributors. I think Andrew Wiggins deserves a big nod tonight. 16 for Wiggs in 30 minutes. And this team is just so much better when Wiggins is a part of the action. They need Wiggins playing 25 to 30 minutes every game and contributing. And tonight he did. 16 points, 6 of 8, made a couple of threes. Him and Kuminga both made threes tonight, 4 of 6. It's the combo of the two that makes the Warriors special when they have both of them playing together and both of them playing well. They also had Klay Thompson put in 21, Chris Paul 19, Pajemski and TJD. So of the 4 young players, all of which who were pretty bad on Saturday except for Kuminga's fourth quarter, TJD, Pajemski, and Kuminga all really good and impactful in this game tonight. And that proves to be the difference. You also only give up 102 as opposed to 126, which I think is a huge difference as well. So 808 KNBR, the number. It is Dubs OT with JD here on a Monday night on the Sports Leader, as it is the Warriors. We're talking a little Warriors basketball after the victory tonight for Golden State in San Antonio. Road trip continues for the Warriors on Wednesday in Dallas, and then they play the Lakers on Saturday, and then the games are just going to come fast and furious beyond that moving forward with Golden State now. Just 18 games to go, and again, 5 of the 18 are against the 2 teams that are directly in front of the Golden State Warriors. We bring in Greg Silver, producer of this program, host of SportsPhone KNBR, the truncated edition, earlier from 6 until about 7:20, 7:25. We'll also get to our question of the night as people continue to file in here on YouTube, Twitch, and on Twitter, the live stream as well there. Dunk of the year in the NBA? Definitely for the Warriors, Greg. I'm kind of thinking about something dunk-related for Trace Jackson-Davis. Maybe we just make Trace Jackson-Davis the question of the night altogether and come up with 4 of his top plays from the year and just have Warrior fans pick which one was their favorite. Hard not to go with tonight, though, and the absolute yam over Wembanyama. I mean, you know, if you've watched TJD, and we both have this year, you know that he was going to go up and try to cram it because he is that type of player, that he is a finisher, and in college even that was one of his best attributes was being an unafraid, unabashed finisher at the rim. But when he was going up, I thought, is this going to work out or not? And it wound up working out in a big-time way.
First off, what kind of beer do I owe you, JD?
We'll figure it out. Maybe a Kolsch at Harmonic. Shout out to our friends at Harmonic Brewing in Thrive City. Not out there tonight for the away game, but we'll be back out there a week from tonight, on the 18th, following the Warriors and the Knicks. That's the next home game for Golden State. So maybe a Kolsch out there, but we can figure something out. You want to tell the people why, who may have forgotten or are joining us for the first time, that you owe me a brew?
I took the bet and I took the bait about whether the Warriors could get it done today. I should have known they play way better on the road. And a few people have already managed to call me out, which I actually love and fully respect, because it means they're invested in our show. It means they're invested in what we got going on social media. So I'm glad to be a part of the fun. And, you know, I don't mind being on the wrong side of the spectrum. I said that on Saturday. And I'm a little surprised with the way the first quarter was going. I'm like, that's 5 quarters in a row where they just give up 30-plus to the Spurs. They calmed it down. Chris Paul was great tonight. Andrew Wiggins was very good tonight. And, man, that play by Trayce Jackson-Davis, I'm good with making that the question of the night, but we got to come up with some of his other best plays. The first one that comes to mind is blocking Jaylen Brown in overtime against Boston. Okay. I know that was a big one, but
the 2 blocks and then the lob dunk finish on the other end against Giannis has got to be up there.
Yeah, for sure.
The 2 block sequence with the dunk at the other end.
Maybe we'll just leave it at those 3.
I think we could leave it at those 3, and then we could also, put a fourth as other list it below. To let the people that want to get creative and feel free to share. Feel free to share videos if you could find the videos of your favorite plays as well. If you get into the mentions there on both Twitter and Threads, but I think that's the name of the game. I think that is the name of the game tonight. Is those 3 plays: the dunk tonight over Wemby, the Jaylen Brown block in the Boston game going back to December, and the 2 block sequence for Trayce Jackson-Davis against Giannis with the dunk on the other end. I know where I'm voting, but I'm not going to say as of yet. But I think that's the way that we need to do it here on Dubs OT tonight on KNBR, the sports leader. So 808 KNBR, again, is the number to give us a call or shoot us a text here as the Warriors win this one 112-102. As Golden State now 34-30, they stop the 2-game losing streak that basically coincide with Stephen Curry not being around. They win for the first time without Stephen Curry in 5 games, now 1-4. And I don't think tonight really changes much as far as, hey, the Warriors have some action without Steph Curry. I thought tonight was more just about survival. I thought tonight was just more about, hey, you're only playing San Antonio a certain amount of times, and so you're going to have to get every win you possibly can against the Spurs, and the Warriors are going to be back in San Antonio in a couple of weeks on March the 31st, and they're going to have to win another game there because there are just a bunch of games. Utah a couple of times at home. Those games I think have to be wins for the Warriors. There's a lot of those. Memphis at home has to be a win coming up on the next homestand. I mean, really, a majority of all the home games have to be wins, and the Warriors have not been good enough at it. I think Charlotte on the road has to be a win because you're going to be playing Minnesota, Miami, and Orlando in the first 3 games of that upcoming trip after this trip concludes, and then the Warriors come back home for the next 3. And, at Portland's going to have to be a win. I think at Houston, as much as they can be a problematic team, the Warriors have had Houston's number over these last few years. I think that's going to be a game that the Warriors are definitely going to have to get. Again, I mentioned the 2 games on consecutive Sundays to close out the year against Utah at Chase Center on April 7 and 14. Like there are a bunch of games that just have to be wins as you start to sort through what's remaining here of the 18. And you're going to have to beat Dallas and the Lakers a couple of times as well here if you want to be able to improve your stock. I saw a lot of, Greg, a lot of comments about, well, the Warriors are locked into 10. The Warriors are locked into 10. The Warriors should just make sure Steph's rested and healthy. You're basically stuck. You're just going to be 10th. Like, suck it up. and just kind of, almost like half-assed the last 5 weeks of the season. And I just don't think that that's reality at this point. I mean, Steph is coming back, and I know Steph did put out on IG, he was soaking that foot in the ice bucket and basically said soon that he would be coming back. That sort of leads me to believe maybe Wednesday has an opportunity to come to fruition. When you look at the reevaluation point as the Warriors go from San Antonio to Dallas, Greg, and they'll be in Dallas for the game on Wednesday night, that sort of leads me to think that Wednesday might be in play. But again, nothing's changed as far as my thoughts on this Warriors team's ability to win games without Steph and Curry. If they don't have Steph, I don't think they win either of the next 2 games against Dallas or the Lakers. But I don't know. Maybe I'm reading a little too much into it, but I kind of feel like Steph knows the importance of those games. Steph knows he needs to get back ASAP. I think the loss to the Spurs on Saturday night, despite what happened tonight, basically, showed Steph like, I really have to push to come back in this one. But the overarching, bigger picture point is 9 and 8 are still attainable. It's not pack it in. Now, 7, maybe not, 6, 5, all of that, I think those maybe have gone by the wayside. But this team has to still get a grip, get Steph back, and they have a shot. If you get to 9, it's a home game to get into the elimination game. If you get the 8, you play on the road for the 7, but then you have a home game again to play for the 8. So you get that in your back pocket. If you get to 8, you also get an extra day of rest between when your first play-in tournament game is and when your second play-in tournament game would be if you lose the first play-in tournament game. So if you're the 8, you go on the road, and if you lose on a Tuesday, you don't play till Friday, where your opponent is going to be a team that played Wednesday with a day shorter rest. So there are still advantages to play for if you're the Warriors, Greg. And so I don't know. I think, if Steph doesn't play these next 2 and the Warriors lose them both and they're 34-32 and they lose another head-to-head against both Dallas and the Lakers, by Saturday night we may be saying, all right, this team's going to be 10. But these next 2 games are going to go a long way toward determining it, and Steph and Curry's ability to play, I think, go a long way toward determining if the Warriors truly have a legitimate chance to win either of these games.
Yeah, you took the thought right out of my mouth. I was going to say, with the games that they have against Dallas and the Lakers still to play, I don't think they're locked into anything. I think it would be tough for them to get top 6, but you could quickly make up a win and give another team a loss. If you take advantage of a head-to-head over Dallas, you could have a tiebreaker over Dallas or the Lakers by the end of this season. So, yeah, I agree. If they lose these next 2, regardless of whether or not Steph plays, then it's a very different picture. But if they go 1-1 or they go 2-0, then it's very much different. I mean, we've seen how quickly it's changed over just 3 or 4 days. You told me yesterday, had the Warriors beaten the Bulls and Spurs, they'd be a half game out of behind the Kings, was it, for 7th?
Yeah, right now they would be if they had just won the other 2 games against San Antonio and Chicago at home. They would be and the game tonight, they would only be a half game back of Sacramento. And so that would, put them in a much better spot right now. I mean, they would have a legitimate shot at 7 and probably even feel like they have a shot at 6. But those 2 games, when you lose, you can't make them up. And so, unfortunately, the Warriors have to just keep pushing forward and try to get on another big time run. 808 KNBR. Let's get to Mark and Millbrae here on the Sports Leader. What's going on tonight, Mark?
Hey, what's going on, guys? Yeah, tonight's handled their business like they should have. That Bulls loss, even with Curry out, that's a game you should win. The Saturday night loss, inexcusable at home to an awful team who was without Wemby. That was just, there's no, and strangely enough, I have confidence they can win. I don't know, a lot of Warrior fans I know that I go to games to talk to, they have more confidence in this team on the road than at home. So this is just one of those wacky, bizarre years where, unlike last year where they couldn't beat anybody on the road, this year they're actually preferably better away from Chase Center. And they showed it again tonight. Just outstanding. They were just. I know they're playing an awful team, but still, this is a game they should have put away. Kuminga was more like himself tonight. He was very efficient. I thought CP3 was fantastic side. I loved Clay. This is a Clay we're going to need, especially without Curry. He's the guy that's got to pick up that offensive slack. And then the Podemski off the bench, great pushing offense. And then what can you say about this young buck, TJT? Man, incredible. Man, I was watching here with the office here. When he put that poster on Wemby, a bunch of us just jumped out of our seat there. That was incredible. That really fired up the guys there. And to me, I was at the game against Milwaukee. The 3-block session on Giannis was good, but this one might be an Edward. Because to me, I think Wemby, you can make an argument, even though he's probably not going to win Defensive Player of the Year because the record is so bad, he probably is because who's playing better than him? Maybe outside of Anthony Davis. To me, Wemby, he did it not on some stiff. This was an elite defender he did on. So hats off to him. I love the fearlessness of this youngster, and he's only getting better. So, and finally, I want to say these next 2 games are going to decide if the Warriors are going to be the 10 seed or the 9 seed. You got a critical game against Dallas. That's going to be a very tough game. They're playing great basketball. And then even huge game is in LA against the Lakers. That's a game you have to win. If they lose that game, it's pretty much you can bookmark them in as the 10 seed. So these next 2 games, I hope they're on the right side of the win column and really get back on track. Because if they're the 10 seed, they got a long haul to roll. Thanks for the time, man.
Yeah, it would be very difficult, Mark, if the Warriors are the 10 seed to make it out. You're basically talking at that point you got to win a couple of road games, but you have to win a road game maybe at the Lakers. We've seen how tough the Lakers have been on the Warriors these last couple of years. And then you'd have to win another road game against probably Sacramento or Dallas or Phoenix. Or maybe the Pelicans are involved in that mix, but most likely you'd have to win. Most likely among the Lakers, Kings, Dallas, and Phoenix, you'd have to beat 2 of those 4 on the road just to get in. And at that point, if you're in the 9-10, you can only get to the 8. And again, when you look at the standings, overall top to bottom, Denver's coming for that top spot. So it could wind up being a scenario. And right now, Denver's actually trailing in the fourth quarter at home to Toronto. So a little bit of a weird one there. But Denver's been coming, still about 9 minutes to go in that one. And odd because Denver has all of their guys in that one as I quickly look at the box score. But, you may wind up having to beat 2 of those 4 teams, and then it gets you the Nuggets in the first round, which probably wouldn't end too well for the Warriors. But as far as home and away, before we pause here, 30 games in on the road now, and the Warriors are 17-13 away from Chase Center, 17-17 on the home floor, which is just unacceptable. But you look at the Warriors, I mean, they are right up there. 4 over 500 is as good as Denver and Phoenix and the Kings. And, I mean, they are among, there's a couple of teams, Oklahoma City, Minnesota, Clippers, who are a little bit better, the Pelicans. But the Warriors have been a top, 5, 6, 7 team in the Western Conference in terms of road prowess over the course of this season. All right, 808 KNBR is the number. It is Dubs OT with JD. We've got Sounds of Silver coming up. Fun with numbers between now and 9 o'clock. 415-808-5627 to give us a call or shoot us a text. It's Dubs OT with John Dickinson. KNBR 104.5 and 680, the sports leader. I think Andrew Wiggins deserves a big nod tonight.
is the flagship of Giants baseball.
Double play!
KNBR and KNBR FM, San Francisco, the sports leader. Hoops Heads, Dubs OT with John Dickinson keeps ballin'. Streaming live at twitch.tv/the sports leader.
Back to an 8-point game from three-point range. Chris Paul to his sweet spot. CP3's got 19.
And he's really helped carry the scoring load.
Yeah, Chris Paul finishes with 19 on 9 of 19, and the Warriors needed it tonight. Him and Klay Thompson going for 40 total. Real nice floor game from CP3, much better than he was on Saturday. Warriors win 112-102 over the Spurs. CP3, 9 boards, 8 assists. So he was flirting with a triple-double. Jonathan Kuminga ends up being the Warriors' leading scorer in this one with 22, and we talked in the first segment, 7 for 10 for Kuminga, much more Kuminga-like as the game went on after a rough 2 of 8 start, and he was able to be a stabilizing force. Really, I thought sparked the Warriors' run in the third quarter after Golden State got down by 10. Steve Kerr called a timeout, not a lot of urgency. Not a lot of effort defensively after the Warriors had looked to try and climb back into the game after they had been down 11 early and had gotten it close at halftime. But then the Warriors did come alive, and Kuminga was a big part of that. Hit a 3, had a couple of buckets and a 13-4 run, and then the subs came in, and it turned in after Kuminga left to a 32-6 run for the Warriors, and they went from down 10 to up 16. That the biggest sequence in the game, I thought, for the Warriors when everything turned, and then they flipped the switch tonight defensively. 18 allowed in the third, 24 in the fourth, and you saw the Warriors only score 43 in the first half of the game at Chase the other night on Saturday in the Spurs blowout victory over the Dubs. Well, tonight the Warriors hold San Antonio to 42 in the second half, 42 in the second half. And the Warriors score 54, and that's enough to wind up winning this game without a lot of drama. The closest the Spurs got in the fourth quarter was an 8-point deficit. So on to Dallas and then the Lakers. We'll see about Stephen Curry and whether he will be returning on Wednesday. Also want to revisit our question of the night on Twitter and Threads. And I've got the Twitter portion of things as Greg keeps tabs better than yours truly as far as threads go. And it was Dubs OT question of the night, your Trace Jackson Davis play of the year. We gave 3 choices and then an opportunity to vote for other. OT block on Jaylen Brown going back to December. The 2-block sequence in the game where he blocked Giannis 3 times that led to a TJD dunk. Tonight's dunk over Wembanyama, which was incredible, and then other coming in at fourth here on the list with less than 1% of the vote, Greg, on Twitter tonight. But the dunk over Wembanyama, again, sometimes we get caught in the recency bias. I voted dunk over Wembanyama. Considering just how he kind of glided into it, and you're thinking, what is going on here? Oh, he did do that over Wembanyama. Like that was something special. And now, as just we're talking here, 60.6% of the vote as votes continue to pile in. The dunk over Wemby, the 2-block sequence in the 3-block game against Giannis, 26.3%, and the OT block, which was big time. On Jaylen Brown back in December in a game that the Warriors won a little shorthanded. That's coming in third at 12.4% of the vote. What do you got on Threads, Greg, as far as that same question?
We have an even 44. Oh, it actually literally just changed. The winner on Threads right now with 50% is the 2 blocks on Giannis into a dunk. Okay. Followed by tonight's slam over Wemby at 39%, and then 11% say overtime block on Jaylen Brown with no responses for other.
Okay. Yeah, all right. That's fair. Yeah, we've had very few responses for other, and I'm just checking to see with 0.7% on Twitter. Plenty of good options between tonight and just last week, the last Warriors win. And I think that's the other big picture thing. And I think it does show the impact of that the younger play, like the Warriors need the younger players to play well. They did not play well in the game on Saturday. Again, aside from Kuminga's fourth quarter, he was pretty rough in the first three quarters. But aside from that, Podziemski really struggled. You had TJD, not his best game. Moody really, really struggled. But in this one, three of the four, and Moses Moody didn't quite play as much tonight, only 12 minutes, but three of the four with GP2 back, his minutes cut down a little bit. But three of the four between Podziemski 14, TJD 13 with the rebounds and the assists. I mean, he was 13, 10, and 5. Trayce Jackson-Davis was 13, 10, and 5 on 6 of 7 shooting. That's phenomenal. A game best plus 20. A game best plus 20. The top plus minuses for the Warriors in this game tonight. TJD plus 20, Podziemski plus 17, and then you've got Andrew Wiggins who came in at a plus 9 in this one. So the young players making a significant impact, and it was another one of these bench games as well for the Warriors where they didn't win the bench totals tonight in terms of scoring, but in terms of impact, they got exactly what they needed from not only Podziemski but Trayce Jackson-Davis.
Yeah, and just to revisit the question of the night one more time, because Trayce Jackson-Davis did make a big difference, and he was equally as effective tonight as he was ineffective on Saturday. Now, that's not to say he was the only one. It was a larger young player's problem. I think my vote in terms of the most epic play is very much the dunk we just saw. Like, you just dunked over Victor Wembanyama, the soon-to-be Rookie of the Year, and guy that is seeming to be a major force in the league for years to come. I got to go with that. But I also want to shine some love on what has the least votes, and that's the overtime block on Jaylen Brown, because I don't think people always appreciate how hard it is to play against championship caliber teams and go in there and do something big. And not only was it a huge play, it was a really timely play. It was one of the better Warrior wins of the season, which tonight was nice and all, but you're not going to put that in the same category. And when you just add a little layered context of Jaylen Brown drew a foul on Steph, that was Curry's fifth foul, early third quarter, hit him with the too small celebration, and then for the Warriors to just hang in there and Trayce Jackson-Davis to go and make that block in a game that the Warriors ultimately won, I think you got to show some love for doing it at the highest level by being so new in the league.
Yeah, it was, again, that's up there. I mean, you could make a case for any of the three that we mentioned, but yeah, I think you could make a case that the Boston play was the most impactful play in at a critical moment for sure. I think, blocking Giannis basically as a one-on-one defender is pretty special. And doing it multiple times, I think is even more significant. But yeah, that was that was a game. The Boston game was a game where the Warriors really were not playing great at that point. I know they had a little winning streak. That was actually in the midst of a little winning streak, but they really were a disappointment, and it was the first true signs of any kind of life, albeit short-lived. I think it was basically from the 16th to the 23rd of December where they had the little 5-game winning streak, but it was the first real signs of life from any of the young players in a meaningful way down the stretch in a game against a quality opponent. Podziemski had some moments. Remember, Kuminga for the most part had been disappointing until right around that time. And Moody, it's like, was he playing? Where is he? So I'm kind of with you as far as the Boston game goes in terms of just overall impact, which was huge.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And I mean, I know we've sort of discussed it that we don't really group that win in there with some of the other ones as of late, just because they didn't have Draymond back and it wasn't the same kind of. Or was Draymond playing in that game?
He was not. It's still one of their best wins.
Okay, yeah, that's what I thought, that he was out for that. But yeah, it just wasn't grouped in with the recent rendition of the Warriors kind of finding their form, but still up there with some of their best wins. You know, it's funny, when the game was going on and I was hosting SportsPhone for a little bit, I said Warriors coming off one of their worst losses of the season, and I said that it felt like this was the 6th time it was a new worst loss of the season, and I started categorizing the different losses. I said the biggest beatdown happened in Boston. The most embarrassing one was what we just saw against the Spurs, but then I think the most gut-wrenching one has to be the Denver loss at home with the 18-point lead.
Yeah, I think some of the blown lead ones for sure have been the ones that just kill you, and there have been a few on the road. The Clippers game on the road, the Sacramento game when they were up 6 with about a minute left, and they looked like they were a high school team that had never seen a trap before, turned it over a couple times, and ended up losing that game, one of multiple games that the Warriors lost to the Kings by a single point. That ultimately are why Sacramento is going to have the tiebreaker, because they split the season series with the Warriors. So yeah, I mean, I like tonight is definitely not among ones that you're gonna put up there as far as huge wins, but it's a game that they needed to get nevertheless. 808 KNBR, the number 808 KNBR 415-808-5627 to give us a call or shoot us a text. It's Dubs OT with JD John Dickinson here, as we're with you each and every night following Warriors basketball. Taking your calls, YouTube chat. Appreciate everybody on Twitch. Text messages. We'll get into the YouTube chat, which we really haven't done too much here momentarily. I do want to let everybody know there is a little bit of, I don't know, not huge breaking news, but Adam Schefter is reporting here just within the last minute or two that Javon Kinlaw has signed with the New York Jets. He's reached an agreement with the New York Jets. So the 49ers, it seemed like they're trying to do a number of different things with some of the moves that they've made as far as the defensive line and adding a couple of pass rushers and saying goodbye to Eric Armstead and Javon Kinlaw on the interior, another player who has found a new home, leaving the 49ers and reaching an agreement with the New York Jets. So we do, with the breaking news, just want to make sure that we're keeping you updated. If anything else happens involving the 49ers, one of their players that may be on the move elsewhere in free agency, or if San Francisco winds up making a positive move, an addition in free agency, reportedly, we will make sure that we let you know about that report here between now and 9 o'clock on Dubs OT with JD. You're not going to want to miss Trace Jackson Davis's response to the dunk over Victor Wembanyama. We'll try to get that for you between now and 9 o'clock as well. Sounds of Silver will be coming up at about 8:30. And Steve Kerr also did give an update on Stephen Curry as far as his status for what is a really important game, one of 3 for Steph, or for the Warriors against the Mavs here between now and the end of the regular season. So we'll keep you updated on what Coach Kerr had to say as well. All of that coming up with Sounds of Silver with our guy Greg Silver at 8:30. Let's get into the YouTube chat a little bit here tonight. On Dubs OT. Douglas Mikes checking in. Good game by Wiggins. Yeah, Wiggins was really good and good early. And, I think, and we've talked about this a little bit, Greg, the Curry injury is obviously why the Warriors suddenly are hurting here over these last couple of games. But I also think the reacclimation of Wiggins and, starting him, but then not playing him a lot, and then he's coming off the bench, and then Curry's out, and you want to change the lineup a little bit. Like, all of those things have led to just kind of a clunky, awkward reacclimation to having Wiggins. And Wiggins is a freaking important player. if the Warriors don't have Wiggins, they can't be the best version of themselves over a lengthy period of time. So I think Wiggins coming alive, especially without Steph, is really important, and he was really good at moments in which everybody else wasn't good. And so, a nice game for Wiggins. He definitely deserves the nod there from the land of Hella. That was an old school ABA dunk by TJD. ABA is a little before my time. And then land of the Hella. Anyone have any idea how many different starting lineups Kerr has used? I can answer that one for you, and I won't make you wait until we do Fun with Numbers just before the top of the 9 o'clock hour. Tonight was the 21st different starting lineup that the Warriors have used this season. Chris Paul, Klay Thompson back in, Wiggins back in, Kuminga, and Draymond Green. 21 different starting lineups for the Warriors now in 64 games, with their record improving to 34-30. Tony Smith, JD won the bet. Appreciate Greg for acknowledging that right off the top of the show. We did have the friendly wager on Dubs OT at Harmonic on Saturday, where I said, you know what, I think the Warriors are going to play much better in San Antonio and figure out a way to get a win. And Greg, I don't think really wanted to take the bet because he didn't want to be rooting for a Warriors loss, but begrudgingly, he did take the bet, and it was looking actually pretty good for Greg early third quarter.
I want good radio, JD. I want good radio.
You're like, damn, can the Warriors stop these guys? I mean, you had Vassell and Wembanyama coming back, and again, you knew the Warriors were going to play a lot more forcefully than they did on Saturday. I didn't think it was going to take them until the third quarter, being down 10 to do it, but whatever it takes.
You know what's awesome is I was catching up with Elder Silver yesterday in person.
Sure.
Got to have a nice dinner together with the parents, and he was talking to me about the Warriors game a little bit, and he's like, who's the Spurs' second best player? And I was like, Devin Vassell, who was also out.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, that made it all the more brutal, basically. But yeah, San Antonio's been playing. They've been playing better. I mean, they've been much more competitive than they had been early in the year. I was actually kind of surprised how bad things got for San Antonio. They were, I think, 3-2, and then had like the 17, 18 game losing streak, and then have been better to a certain extent since then. But I didn't think they were going to be as bad as they've turned out to be when you look at the standings. I mean, 14-51 are the Spurs, which again, I made this comparison the other night. 14-51. The Warriors, who got shut down and not invited to the bubble 4 years ago today, when everything shut down, basically like 4 years ago right now. That team was 15-50. So the Spurs have been 2019-2020 Warriors level bad this year, in case you're looking for an easy-to-remember comp. But the Warriors handling their business tonight. Erwin Kwong checking in. Great game and energy on defense for most of the game. Yeah, second half, I thought, and pieces of the second quarter, I thought, as well for the Warriors. By the way, just keeping everybody updated on the scores, Denver did outlast Toronto. They won 125-119, so they came back in the fourth quarter. So Denver now moves to within a half game of the top spot in the Western Conference, 45-20. They're a half game back of the Thunder. Denver's now a game ahead of Minnesota. Minnesota is third, which I think would change the way a few teams would view potentially being the 6th seed. I mean, I know you want to get to it, but for a while it's been, well, hell, if you get to the 6th seed, then you're maybe playing Denver, because Denver's basically been 3 for the better part of the last month plus. Now maybe not. Now maybe you're getting a Minnesota team that's been a little more vulnerable of late. Couple of more here. Alpha Nickelberry, one of our regulars in the YouTube chat here. What's going on, JD? Not that I want this, but I can't. I'm reluctant to read this, Greg. I think the Warriors have to trade Kuminga plus whatever for a legit second star to help Steph now. I think they found something with Clay as a sixth man. Not going to get too far down the road here. I know we broached that. I kind of mentioned it over the weekend on Just Dubs. We were talking about it a little bit in our little pre-show meeting we had on Friday night that was not aired anywhere. But that is going to be the question. I think the best way to phrase it is that's the question that the Warriors are going to have to determine an answer to in the offseason. And it's based on Kuminga's continued growth. It's based on their projections of what Kuminga will continue to be over the next few years. And it's like, look, if you think he's going to be a superstar, then forget it. Untradeable. Don't do it. If the Warriors think that they're good enough in other areas or they can become good enough in other areas to be able to contend for another title, and he plus others can bring in a player that gets them closer to that during the Steph prime window, then you have to consider it, point blank. I'm not saying you do it, but I do think the big offseason question for the Warriors is going to be, do they have to go get another player that's already a star to put next to Steph? But the only way you're doing that is if you want to contend for championships and you believe you're going to contend for championships. Or do you continue the build with Kuminga? You're probably going to have to pay him around $120 million or more in a contract that'll kick in not next year but the following year. And you're betting at that point that he's going to be a superstar, at least an all-star caliber player in short order. And, could his ascension still coincide with Steph? Again, I'm not saying do it, and I've been very clear on this. There is a ton of risk involved in any potential trade with Kuminga. But I do think that is going to be a fair question, because the only way the Warriors are going to be able to get that star-level player would be to include somebody with the value that Kuminga now has that he didn't have 2 months ago. So, again, food for thought here on KNBR, the sports leader. KM Johnson, they fought for this win. Proud of them. My fams, JD, you being sincere about giving JK credit. I give JK credit all the time on this show. It's nothing new.
Yeah, it's because I pay him.
No doubt. Douglas Mikes chimes in, and this is what was so disappointing about Kuminga on Saturday. Douglas Mikes, these are the kind of games Kuminga has to rise to the occasion for. And yes, and rise to the occasion in terms of attacking relentlessly and not settling. And he settled on Saturday. He didn't do that tonight. He was attacking relentlessly early. He took a couple jumpers, but again, he's going to take, if Curry's out, he's going to take a few more jumpers. That's just reality. So you got to live with it whether you like it or not. But he can't be low energy. He does not earn the right to coast, and I think that goes for all of the young players. I don't want to single him out. It felt like the young players coasted Saturday. Young players can't coast without Steph. And I think that's where, at times maybe they've looked at the Warriors' vets and seen the vets coast some, and I think that's where maybe there's been a little bit of a bad example here or there. But no, that has to be something that's always going to be. Jimbo, great game. Chris grinded him down the stretch. Yeah, Chris Paul was tremendous. Absolutely. Irwin, again, I thought Kuminga showed the needed restraint and adjustment after getting stronged by Wemby. He did. No, he did. Again, I thought the best when Kuminga was 2 for 8 and basically for about, 7-8 minutes just didn't even look to take a shot. And then, as it let other players get into a rhythm, and, then he ended up taking a 3 that he made, but it's he basically took an in-game breather, even though he was on the court. He took an in-game breather, and that I thought was it was an acknowledgement that he needed to be better and change it up a little bit, and he didn't press. He was aggressive early. He got denied a couple times, and then he relaxed and let the game come back to him, and he had an excellent second half. of the ball game, and really into the first half and on into the second half. So 808 KNBR, we'll pause here. We'll come back. Still time to sneak in a couple of calls. We got fun with numbers. Sounds of Silver, though, is straight ahead. It's Dubs OT with JD. Warriors beat the Spurs 112-102. It's KNBR 104.5 and 680, the sports leader.
5-5. something? Yeah, like a swoosh.
Yeah. Dubs OT presents the sounds of silver. Streaming live on YouTube at KNBR 1045.
All right, welcome back. Dubs OT with JD, John Dickinson. Warriors beat the Spurs 112-102. Hooray for small victories. Although, without Stephen Curry, is there such a thing as a small victory? Warriors, for the first time this season, win without Steph, as he has missed 5. And the Warriors now 1-4 in the games that he has missed this season. Let the game against Chicago slip away on Thursday night when he went out with just under 4 minutes to go. We did mention in the last segment Steve Kerr in his post-game press conference telling reporters in San Antonio, and we're not going to play the clip, but we do want to relay the information that Coach Kerr saying that it is he does not expect Steph to play in Dallas. He gave about a little 25-second or so just explanation on where Steph is at as far as the ankle injury. I know he's going to get reevaluated tomorrow, and with Coach Kerr saying that, I would imagine that the reevaluation tomorrow goes something like he's continuing to make good progress and will be reevaluated again on Friday because the Warriors are not going to have a practice on Thursday in all likelihood coming off of the game Wednesday, and then they probably will actually have a practice on Friday in Los Angeles before taking on the Lakers on Saturday. And I think Friday then would become the big day, Greg, as far as whether Steph would be able to participate in some semblance of what's probably a light practice in Southern California. And if he could, then I think things would be trending toward him being obviously able to play in the game down at Crypto.com. You keep him out of Wednesday, and you get another 2 days before you have to play on Saturday. So it actually, from a timing and a calendar standpoint, Greg, I think it makes sense to keep him out of the Dallas game. But the Mavs are suddenly playing a little bit better basketball. They won tonight. Just kind of going through and recapping a couple of the scores here. We'll just give you the Dallas score here. Dallas blew out Chicago. So the Warriors and Kings couldn't beat Chicago, but the Bulls go home, and Dallas thumps them tonight, 127-92. So the Mavs improved to 37-28. They've won 3 in a row after they were starting to slide, been very hot and cold. They've actually moved into a tie, Sacramento virtual lead over Dallas. Both of those 9 games over the 500 mark. Phoenix also got a win to move a game up on Sacramento now for 6. Phoenix won in Cleveland tonight, 117-111. Had a big lead, almost let it go down the stretch. And the Cavs have been playing well, even woefully shorthanded themselves. But the Suns able to go in there and win that one to get to plus 11 to 500. So time for Sounds of Silver. We bring back in Greg Silver, here fine producer, co-host of this show, Dubs on Saturdays. And what do we got tonight as far as post-game locker room sound?
Well, before we get to any of the sound, I just got to single out some comments in the chat because you all make me laugh, and I love having you all as part of the show. This is back to the bet that I owe you a beer, and Regulator says, I took one for the team. Uncle Looney said, I just wanted to buy you a beer, and thank you. And then Irwin says he can get used to me buying beers. Hey, listen to everyone. If we're both out there for a Dubs OT at Harmonic, we are 100% picking up that tab big time. That'd be so fun.
No, absolutely. We would definitely. We're probably going to have to do. We're going to probably have to do some kind of event. We're probably going to have to do some kind of event between now and the end of the season. I don't think there's much doubt about it. And so I'm all for it. Obviously, we'd probably do it at Harmonic and Thrive City, but that's something that I think we can put on the to-do list here between now and the end of the year.
Oh yeah, I am all for it. Let's get to our sounds. First up is Chris Paul from the court being interviewed on NBC Sports Bay Area, and he talks about teaching the young guys a thing or two about the game of basketball.
It's hard because I got a very strong personality, man, and I tell you, it is like a coach because you should be worried if I ain't saying nothing to you. Seriously, I'm just constantly trying to teach and play and compete at the same time. I think I say this all the time. That's why me and Draymond get along so well, because we listening to what each other's saying and not how we're saying it. And I just want them guys to know that we got enough, and we just got to play that way.
Yeah, I mean, leadership. I think point blank, bottom line, Greg, it's leadership, and different leadership styles I think are what's important. But the young players are, even though sometimes it may be tough love, sometimes they may be uncomfortable. They are, Chris Paul and Draymond and these guys, like, they are leaders, and the young players really couldn't have better leaders in many ways than those two, and obviously Steph Curry, who leads in a different way.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's funny to hear Chris Paul say, that's why me and Draymond get along so well, when they had their whole history of beef and Draymond being like, I don't like Chris Paul. But at the same time, it does make sense why they would coexist nicely as teammates, as where they're at in this point in the career and how much respect they have for one another as players. We always talk about the Hall of Famers loving Chris Paul, and that includes the head coach. Let's go to the head coach, because we have a cut from him. And it's not about Chris Paul, but JD, you're usually pretty good with where you're at on your Steve Kerr pulse. What do you think upset him the most about the first half of that game?
Oh, wow.
It's a broad answer.
Defensive intensity?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, that would be the simple answer.
Yeah, he was not very pleased with the defensive effort, and so this is Steve Kerr for about 29 seconds talking about the way his team turned it up and turned the game around.
I didn't like the way the game started. I thought we were a step slow, and then I picked up the pace in the first half was fast, but I liked our level of competition. As we went on, the third quarter defense after that quick 8-0 start for them, we really turned up our defense, and I don't know what they shot in the second half, but we held them to 42, and the way that team had scored on us the other night, and in the first half, that's what it was going to take to win the game.
Yeah, they got it together right at the point in which it was going to become really problematic. And you look at the numbers in the second half and holding the Spurs to 42. That gets that's what it's going to take. And but at times I think the Warriors have been a little too comfortable, sort of coasting defensively and thinking they can outscore teams. And the reality is the Warriors without Steph aren't going to be good enough to outscore, really anybody. And they weren't tonight. They got the defense locked in. Other things fell into place, and it was all good from there.
Yeah, there's no question about it that this was not one of the better teams in the NBA. But hey, you could lose to anybody.
I want to hear Trace Jackson Davis on the dunk over Wemby. That's what I want.
Yes, we are. That is exactly where we're going. After I acknowledge San Jose Jazz fan the third's comment about marking the tape and holding us to our word. Oh yeah, we're dead serious on purchasing the drinks for you. This is not a front. This is not a drill.
Not at all. Come down. Stop by, say hi. We got you covered.
Erwin saying fan abduction. No. Have a good time. Let's hear Trace Jackson Davis discussing what was the play of the night and, according to some of our voters on Twitter, the play of the year.
I saw that he overplayed it, and then he overplayed it to my right. Obviously, I'm left-handed, so I think I spun or got to my left hand, and then I had to step on him. So just trying him. I told Loon before the game that if I got the chance to try him, I would. But at the end of the day, sometimes you dunk on people, sometimes you get dunked on. So it's just a basketball play.
Yeah, just a basketball play. And how about that? He told Loon that if he got a shot, he was going to shoot a shot and try to put it down over Wemby. And boy, did TJD put it down over Wemby, Greg. Impressive.
Yeah, I may have to save that call and put it on the soundboard as a drop or something. I mean, I will give Fitz and Kalenic credit, they did a nice job with that one. They reacted appropriately to a play that made me look up and just go, can I see the replay like 3 times?
It was incredible. I just was in disbelief at what I had just seen, to be honest, even though you could kind of tell TJD likes to go up and finish. He really, that is a big part of his game, as we talked about earlier, even going back to his time at Indiana. So, yeah, really, really not like. I'm not surprised he tried it. I'm not gonna lie. I was a little surprised he got it done. But yeah, take that wingspan and shove it, Victor Wembanyama.
Let's hear more from Trayce Jackson-Davis, because he usually doesn't have long cuts, but this one is a little bit longer, and he talks about the value of playing against the best players in the NBA. Our last cut, by the way, which we'll get to in a second, needless to say, I think the young players might have woken up just a little bit. Here's what Trayce had to say.
They're great players. By the end of the day, you got to just take on that challenge and you got to accept it. Play with Draymond, and sometimes I go in for him. And every time he says something to me, he gives me confidence. And so I just try to go out there and perform every time. And so tonight he said, just go take care of business, because they went on a run. And then Chris was like, Dre, you want to stay in? And he was like, no, Trayce, you got it. You got us. And then continue just to play well. So when you got guys like Dre doing that, it gives you a lot of confidence.
Yeah, it no doubt. And again, it goes back to the leadership conversation as far as, Chris Paul, and Draymond, I think, has been better at pumping up Kuminga, pumping up Trayce Jackson-Davis, not always being the guy that's just, tearing a player down. And I'm sure there is still some of that, but you also have to be building players up. And I think we've seen a little bit of a shift, Greg, in terms of, I think, how the veteran players have embraced the younger players, and I think it's helped the younger players grow up at a much higher and more significant rate than we had seen previously. And part of that is Klay Thompson accepting a bench role to Brandon Pajemski. Part of that is Draymond saying that he believes that Kuminga is a legitimate, number 2 and has been a big part of the reason why the Warriors have turned it around because of that. Giving and instilling confidence in TJD, all of that is leadership, and I think it's led to why there's been a better, more cohesive assembly of the veteran players with the younger players here of late.
And it's twofold, right? Because the young players will come in with confidence, but once they start seeing that the veterans trust them more and really do believe in them and are doing their best to coach them on and off the floor, then it's going to help their game, and then they're going to continue to learn. And when they're playing a little looser, I think Jonathan Kuminga is a really good example of that, where you'd see him just kind of not really know what he was doing out there sometimes, especially defensively, or he would be given a short leash. He'd make a couple mistakes. He'd get frustrated, and he'd be yanked out of the game. Then I think he was given a longer leash, and the older players rather did trust him, and then he was able to play through his mistakes a little bit better, and he's been able to string together some great games because of it. So I think it's a two-way kind of beneficiary relationship, and you're right in what you said in the first segment, that the Warriors need the young players to play well if they're going to do anything. Like, obviously, you need Steph to be there and play good basketball if you want to be truly competitive, but that's not enough. You need Steph, you need Wiggins to show up, you need Chris Paul to be healthy in all likelihood. Klay has been doing really good things off the bench, and you need pretty consistent regular contributions from these younger guys, and that's what you're starting to see a good handful of times. But when they're asleep at the wheel, it doesn't matter who you're playing. You could get punked by a Spurs team without their 2 best players.
Yeah, it comes down to consistency and the need and desire to bring it on a night in and night out basis. And so that's that's something that I think young players have to continue to learn by being put through the rigors of the NBA, and sometimes taking those lumps that are games like Saturday night, as unfortunate as they are, because I think we are still going to look back at some of the games the Warriors have let slip at the end of the year and think, damn, this team could have been in a much better position. But now it's all about just ever forward, and you can't make up the losses. The only thing you can do is go out and try to win the games that are in front of you. 808 KNBR, the number here, final couple of minutes. It's Dubs OT with JD here on the Sports Leader. And then we have one more. Do we have one more cut?
One more.
Or was that the last? One more cut here on Sounds of Silver tonight.
This is Brandon Pajemski on the difference between tonight and Saturday. I thought it was a good cut, and I also kind of want to give my translation of the cut afterwards, and I'm curious to hear your analysis on it, JD.
I wouldn't even say it was their pace. I think it was just they played harder. We didn't bring it on Sunday or Saturday. And obviously, they played really well. They're a team that, tries to create an advantage and swings the ball around and, tries to shoot open shots. And if you're not locked in and you're not playing with energy and force, they made 51% of their threes last game. Tonight, holding them to 38%, was definitely a big key for us, but also just showing what we're about and, not letting anybody punk us.
Yeah, not getting punked. The Warriors did get punked on Saturday. Nobody punked them tonight. And it looked at times like maybe the Warriors were going to get punked, but they pushed back in the right moments to be able to get the job done, Greg, and to earn a win that, again, will not be in any of the top 34 wins so far of this season, maybe, or 33. Might be at the bottom. But important nevertheless, because this team can't just completely lose every single game without Steph here between now and the end of the season.
No, they cannot, and I would not necessarily bet on them to get it done on Tuesday, although, once again, I would love to buy you another beer, my friend. My interpretation of that cut, by the way, was we didn't disrespect them before the tip. It was a realization that you're Brandon Pajemski and Trace Jackson-Davis and Kuminga and Moody, and it's like, who are you compared to some of these young Spurs players? Like, it's different for Steph or Draymond or Chris Paul or Clay to come out there and maybe take their foot off the gas a little bit. But if you're these young players, there was no excuse and, frankly, no reason to come out there like you were some kind of level above them. I think the message was well received because even in the first quarter, when you were losing by about 10 points or anything, I never felt like the energy was terrible or like there was no sense of urgency.
No, I agree with that. It was just the defensive effort was not where it needed to be. And so I think that was the problem. A few people checking in here before we get to fun with numbers. And we also do want to apologize tonight. I know there's been a few more hiccups tonight on the YouTube stream. From a technical standpoint, it's been a little bit glitchier tonight. I don't believe it's my connection, although we don't know. I mean, I've been kind of looking at my connection throughout the show here just to make sure that internet speeds and everything are up to snuff. I know at times we do have a little bit of an issue with the studio computer that helps process and get the feed out to the people on YouTube, Twitch, and on Twitter X as well. So I know a few people in the chat have been saying, hey, JD, you're freezing up, you're glitching a little bit more than normal, and the appropriate people have been notified, and we'll get it squared away here between now and Wednesday when we reconvene, and Thursday for that matter. Wednesday I'm going to have Dubs OT for you following the Dallas game, and then Thursday I'm going to have SportsPhone join me and Greg as well. We're going to have SportsPhone as Kerry Crowley has the week off here from SportsPhone duties. So with that said, a few people chiming in as well, Greg, on Harmonic, a JD and Greg fan fest, Irwin says. San Jose Jazz fan even has thrown out a specific date. He's saying April 7th may be a time for a JD Summit at Harmonic, the 5:30 tip against Utah, the first of the consecutive Sundays where the Warriors are going to host the Jazz. That's a possibility. That's a possibility. I think a weekend is probably the best move with an earlier start time. And honestly, looking at the schedule and what the Warriors have left, The only weekend home games the Warriors have left are those final two, April 7 and April 14, when the Warriors play the Jazz, interestingly enough, in both of those contests. So, yeah, we'll nothing official yet, Greg, but when it does become official, should it become official, and hell, we're going to make it become official at some point here in the coming weeks.
Yeah, I need you all to understand you're giving us the perfect leverage over management.
No, this is perfect. This is actually, tremendous to be able to set this thing up and allow some of the regulars to come out and enjoy a brew and be a part of the Dubs OT family here at KNBR, the sports leader. The JD and Greg Dubs OT, Just Dubs family, and we're more than willing to show the love. All right, let's have some fun with numbers, and then we will call it a night here on KNBR.
This is Dubs OT with JD. Time now for fun.
I'm a fun guy.
With numbers.
No, I'm just having fun.
On KNBR 104.5 and 680. Streaming live on KNBR.com and the KNBR app.
The Warriors, 17-13 on the road. 9 of the last 10 for Golden State on the road. So they get off the schneid after they had the 8-game winning streak and then blown out embarrassingly in Boston at the end of the last road trip. But they just get right back on the horse and get the win in San Antonio. The Warriors have won 5 straight in San Antonio, which is the longest ever road winning streak against the Spurs. And for those of you that know your Warriors history, the Warriors did not win in San Antonio for a long time, almost 20 years in the regular season. The Warriors didn't win in San Antonio going way back to basically when Tim Duncan became a Spur and Greg Popovich became the head coach. So winning in San Antonio, if you're a longtime Warriors fan, even as bad as the Spurs are now, it's got to make you think that this team now is making up for lost time, because when the Spurs were great, the Warriors never won in San Antonio. It seemed like they did get one in the playoffs in 2013 in the second round, and they did finally, when San Antonio was good, break that long streak in the 73-9 year when the Warriors needed some wins and needed a win in San Antonio to get to the record. As it turned out, they needed all of those wins. So 5 in a row at San Antonio, 2-1 advantage in the season series between the Warriors and the Spurs. Again, they'll play on March 31st at San Antonio, so that's coming up 3 weeks from yesterday. Warriors did earn their 10th win of the year after trailing by 10 or more points. 10 is the new 5, I think, as far as leads go, if I'm paraphrasing what Steve Kerr said before the game on Saturday. The Warriors trailed by 10 or more in both of their wins against San Antonio. The in-season tournament victory back in November as well. And it's the third time this year that the Warriors, third time this season, the Warriors trailed by double figures and went on to win by 10 or more. They did that at home against Portland in December and at Philadelphia in February during the Super Bowl week. And again, we talked earlier about the 21st different starting lineup for the Warriors. Trace Jackson-Davis, 5th career double-double, career high 5 assists. Again, TJD, 13, 10, and 5, and the dunk over Victor Wembanyama. Double figures for the 18th time, which matches a couple of players for the most games with 10 or more points by a 2023 second-round pick. Gigi Jackson is among those on that list as well. So TJD, one of the steals of the draft in the second round and doing things that very few second-round picks have done this season. Podziemski padded his league-leading charge advantage. He has 33 charges drawn. Jalen Brunson second with 28. Andrew Wiggins, 15th game of 15 or more. Kuminga scored 20 or more for the 19th time, and he's been over 20 in 6 of the last 8 games. We talked about the Warriors getting their first win this year in a game where Stephen Curry sat out. Final thoughts, Greg, before we call it a night here at 9 o'clock on the Sports Leader.
Yeah, just, I don't want to say good win, but avoiding another bad loss, I suppose. And every win counts. So good to see the young players do their thing tonight. Good to just get more reps, getting to deal with a little craziness. But a big thank you to Jacob, who was helping out tonight. And we had a good little sports phone right before the show. So I'll be back at it on Wednesday. Same deal. I'll be hosting a little sports phone leading right up to Dubs OT. So if anyone in the chat feels like calling in, 415-808-KNBR, give me a ring, and we'll probably be talking about some more NFL free agency and maybe a little hoops and maybe a little Giants in there too.
Yeah, and we got you covered the next few nights, Wednesday and Thursday. I think Dieter Kurtenbach is going to be in tomorrow for Kerry Crowley. So make sure you listen to him. And then Greg back at 6 on Wednesday, and I will join him for Dubs OT around 7:45 or 8 o'clock. And we'll go at least until 9, probably closer to 9:30. Or even later if the people want to talk. Again, apologies for some of the stream issues tonight. Know that it's being worked on. We'll have it corrected for you on Wednesday, and we will talk to you then. For Greg and Jacob and Cole, I'm JD. Talk to you Wednesday. Warriors win over the Spurs 112-102. KNBR 104.5 and 680, the sports leader.
Trace Jackson Davis. Put the entire country of fans in the basket. Take that 8-foot wingspan with you. That's just like making a game winner.
Clock at 3. Curry 3.
Absolutely lit. Got to give Jonathan Kuminga a lot of credit tonight. A lot of credit tonight.
Some days I think about like homework in school, but then, I got to look and I don't have it.
I love it. I love that guy so much.
I think Andrew Wiggins deserves a big nod tonight.
But Grant Williams got to stop him.
Draymond is like fish sauce. Big, fat dub.